Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Teresa. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Teresa.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos, and we got a jam-packed drama alert today. So much to dive into, so much news going on. We'll be hitting on everything from Afroman's recent lawsuit victory. How many of you guys were covering that? That's probably going to be the first thing we actually dive into. Funny. It's actually pretty funny. Afroman was sued by a local police department who wrongfully raided his house. They claimed they had a warrant for potential kidnapping and narcotics. Afroman is the very popular rapper from the late 1990s, early 2000s with hit songs like Because I Got High, Colt 45, stuff like that. And he's kind of his more recent career has kind of become more like a Weird Al Yankovic, where he takes the theme of other songs and then changes the words. But he got raided they stole money from him. The police officers, one actually ate his mother's lemon pound cake, which was on the sort of center kitchen island there. And so he made these rap songs about them, ended up getting sued by the local police department for defamatory comments, and he just won yesterday. So we'll be talking about that story. Joe Kent's resignation. Joe Kent was a congressional candidate. I would say probably most notorious for the time where he was running for Congress, and he was briefly supported by Fuentes and some of the Groypers, and then ended up condemning them and then lost his race. Well, he was appointed by Trump to head the National Counterterrorism Department, and he just resigned a couple days ago. Joe Kent is a former Green Beret who served 11 tours in Iraq, and his wife also died in the Middle East due to these wars with Iraq. Well, really these Israeli wars, as we know, right? But the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, but she died in Iraq as well. And he wrote a resignation letter to Trump telling him that he just out of his conscience and the purity of his heart, he cannot support any more wars on behalf of Israel. And this has sparked huge backlash. And I'm going to show you so many instances from, people like Stephen A. Smith, the sports commentator, who, from what we're told, he's being groomed by the powers that be to potentially run as either a Republican or a Democrat. And so we'll get into it. But everybody from Lindsey Graham, the ADL, Greenblatt at the ADL, all these people commenting about how claiming that Israel was responsible for the U.S. involvement in the war in Iran is now anti-Semitism. And so we've been covering this push for anti-Semitism really since Trump took office for the second presidential term. And yeah, things are increasing. And now we're even hearing John Bolton. I have a clip from John Bolton talking about the resignation letter of Joe Kent, which was very cordial, sincere. And I'm not here to vouch for Joe Kent in one way or another, but certainly wasn't anti-Semitic. I mean, the only reference was that he doesn't want men and women dying in Israeli wars, which is just the sentiment of the whole world right now. And we're going to get into that in regards to the Iran war, because sentiments regarding Israel are quickly changing. They've already been on a precipitous decline. We've covered that previously. But now, yesterday, Israel struck the natural gas refinery in Iran. It's the largest natural gas in the world, the reservoir there. And of course, that was off limits. So we're told this is actually part of the story. We're gonna spend a considerable amount of time today diving into this. But according to Trump, he was unaware that Iran was going to be attacked by Israel, and they were going to target the natural gas facilities around the Gulf. This was considered to be off limits. And so the reason for is part of the pressure already behind this war has to do with the escalating oil prices. Now, if you're looking at the price of barrels of oil from Texas, they're actually lower than the global average. So Brent oil is a little bit different than the Texan oil. So we as Americans are actually going to feel the brunt of the oil crisis, the energy crisis, probably last in the world. We've already talked about how this has been wildly beneficial for Russia and Putin. They were raking in around $153 million extra a day because of the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, the expectation was Israel wasn't going to target their oil, especially the natural gas, the largest reservoir we have in the world, because the idea was we're going to open up the strait and we need to get global oil production back up to pace. Well, of course, as we've already talked about, Israel's not interested in any sort of peace. And they're really not even interested in any protection of the Gulf states. So, according to Trump, Israel went behind his back when they agreed to not attack these facilities and targeted them last night. Iran immediately responded by bombing the LNG refinery over in Qatar. So what does that do? Well, that's according to what we've heard, that just the damages that Iran caused last night with 2 strikes is going to set them back 5 to 10 years. So not an easy fix. And according to the analysts I was listening to today, they say the oil situation due to Israel's bombing in Iran and then Iran bombing various Gulf states, that they were basically set back for oil production by a decade. I mean, the LNG refinery in Qatar, I was reading, was $70 billion. $70 billion to build that, and it was complete in the recent future, like within the last 10 years, I believe. And so that now has been damaged. I was reading somewhere around 20%, 25% of the refinery's been damaged. So that isn't going to provide any more favor on behalf of the Israelis. And so Trump puts out a truth post last night blaming the whole event on Israel. Now, this is just 24 hours after the Joe Kent resignation, in which he was told that he's anti-Semitic for implying that Israel is getting the U.S. involved in doing things behind our back. 24 hours later, then Trump posts insinuating that Israel did exactly that. We are now seeing that Sweden is calling for Israel to be dismembered from every international organization around the world. We see that Germany is pulling its support from the state of Israel. This all happened yesterday. And we're also seeing that multiple European states have actually agreed to ally with the United States and Trump to try to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. So the whole thing is that it's a very precarious situation because Iran does have the ability to attack any ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. That's why the U.S. still says they will not provide safety for any ship going through. And, well, now we're going to get a handful of countries involved that if their ships get hit, we're definitely going to be in a world war. So things are, increasing. Another major news, and probably the biggest piece of news what we're going to be talking about today is really twofold. The first one is Israel has closed the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I don't know if you guys heard this. This is massive news for Orthodox Christians. What does that mean? Well, we're in the middle of Lent, and we're leading towards Pascha. Do you guys know what event happens on the day of Pascha in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is celebrated by the global community of Christians, especially the Orthodox and the Armenians? You know what event that is? It's called Holy Fire. Holy Fire. Interestingly enough, and we've covered this in previous eschatological streams, is that Elder Ephraim of Arizona, of Mount Athos, had a very interesting comment in which he said the year in which the holy fire doesn't come is the year of Antichrist. Now, take that idea, because now the holy fire isn't coming this year. They've barricaded the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and how many times in history do you think this has happened? No point in the history of Christianity has the Church of the Holy Sepulchre been closed. And yet it's closed right now on behalf of Israel. Now, in conjunction with that, a rabbi in Israel has claimed that today, this Thursday, March 19th, 2026, is the arrival of their Mashiach, their Messiah. So, guys, count your blessings, because according to this particular rabbis we'll go over, today is the day. Apparently their Mashiach is born. So who knows where he is, according to these specific Jews, but they're claiming that their Messiah has arrived today, at least one group of them. one rabbi in particular in his following. And he recently, I think there was a statement from Netanyahu we'll look into that, the Messiah is not coming this, it was last Thursday. Well, then just a few days later, a rabbi in Israel says, actually, he's coming this Thursday, March 19th, which is a week later, and that's today. So we may be living exactly at the time, according to these rabbis, in which the Antichrist has been born. So wild times. And I say that because according to that rabbi, and we're going to watch a video of him talking about it, their Mashiach comes today, and according to Elder Ephraim, the year in which the holy fire does not descend, which it's not going to this year, nobody's going to be in the church, they're not allowing it, it's literally barricaded, that'd be the year of Antichrist. So some interesting developments. I'm going to let you guys make up your mind on what all that means. I'm not going to claim that this is for certain, but it's certainly a sign to watch out for and to be aware of. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. Smash that like, guys. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate seeing everyone here on this Thursday, March 19th. Blessed Lent to everyone. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Thursday. One more day until the weekend for all you hard workers out there that got full-time jobs and kids and family. Just one more day, and then it's the weekend. Mr. Fist gifted 5 Codal Crew memberships for us. Thank you so much, Mr. Fist. Really appreciate you, brother. God bless you, and thank you for all the support. Serbian Slav Squad, shout out to Serbian Slav Squad. He sponsored our stream earlier this week on CERN. He says, bunch of Euro countries and Japan joining the war. Yes, they are. Yes, indeed they are. Possibly Gulf countries, too. Looks like the happy merchant is about to get even happier. Yeah, the happy merchant is going to get even happier. So Japan has agreed. Their new president was at the White House today in discussions with Trump. They've agreed, even though just a few days ago they emphatically claimed that they would not be joining. Well, what happens? Just a few days later, they come to the White House. They have brokered some deal with Donald Trump, along with Germany, along with a handful of countries. I have all the list. We'll get into it. And then the Gulf nations are now threatening because Iran also had some missiles land in Saudi Arabia. So it could be that Saudi Arabia, some of these other Gulf nations are going to declare war on Iran. I could see why Qatar would, given that their oil refinery got knocked off last night. But this is, it's immediately, again, revolving, or devolving, I should say, devolving into a world war. We know that Russia and China, they've already admitted that they're providing intelligence for Iran. So even though right now it's Iran that's taking the brunt of this battle, we're hearing that China is already talking about potentially taking Taiwan, not by force, but through some type of negotiated deal, or making them a protectorate of some sort so that they're not dependent on the United States. So a lot of interesting stuff going on. But, here's the thing about the happy merchants, Serbian Slav Squad. I'm going to show you guys something today where Netanyahu made a public appearance. It's been debated, and I think Israel played into it quite a bit. We didn't know if Netanyahu was still alive. And then Israel, on behalf of Netanyahu, posts obviously AI videos, leading the entire internet to speculate he's either seriously wounded or, in fact, dead. They had, two or three military conferences in which he was not present for the first time, so leading a lot of people to speculate, oh, wow, Iran got him. Maybe he is dead. Well, he's now made a public appearance today, and in that one appearance, he had 2 interesting things to say that I'll be showing you today. One, he talks about how Jesus Christ didn't have the power to stop Genghis Khan, and Christ doesn't have the power to stop real evil in the world. So a weird insult to Christians for some reason. That was Netanyahu. We're going to watch it. And then the second one was discussing the repercussions that occurred last night due to Israeli strikes on the natural gas fields in Iran, is talking about how he wants the oil pipeline from the Gulf nations to run through Israel, and that Israel will then provide oil and energy to the Mediterranean and Europe. Obviously, that would make Israel incredibly wealthy. It also make them incredibly powerful, as they would be able to dictate potentially energy access to a wide variety of nations. So, does anything that has happened been detrimental for the Israelis? No, interestingly enough. If the Gulf countries get wiped out, Israel doesn't care. They're only stronger for it. Anything that happens in Iran, they're stronger for it. They do not care about oil prices whatsoever. Trump is, again, in this rock and a hard place because he wants to appease everyone, keep the oil prices low. We're supposedly have already defeated Iran, although it definitely doesn't look like it. A major thing occurred, 4 days ago, where the USS Gerald Ford, one of our carriers, not the biggest one, Abraham Lincoln, the biggest one, but the Gerald Ford caught fire. Iran immediately said online that they hit one of the U.S. cruise ships, which would be really big news. These things are massively, massively expensive. And if they were to ever sink one, that's a massive victory for Iran. Well, it was engulfed in flames. We have helicopter videos of the ship clearly on fire. The U.S. claims that it was a fire that occurred in the laundry room of the ship. Iran claims that they actually struck the USS Gerald Ford. We don't know which one's true. But it does make sense, as we've already seen. Israel and the U.S. has been covering up anything that has made them look bad or any sort of success that Iran has had. It would make sense for the United States to potentially lie about whether or not Iran did target and successfully hit one of the U.S. carriers. But we'll discuss some of that. Gorilla Biscuits throws in 5. Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate you. Blessed Lent to you and your family. My brother Red Fox says, blessed Lent to you. Blessed Lent to you, Red Fox. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying things in your part of the country. Randolph Wessler throws in 2, says, blessed Lent, Doc. Well, thank you very much, Randolph Wessler. Blessed Lent to you as well. And Nathaniel throws in 10, says, didn't the Ottomans try to barricade the Church of the Holy Sepulchre at one point only for the holy fire to burst out the door? I think there is even a crack outside the church where the fire hit. I don't know the details of anything regarding that. I know that even the Ottomans were never successful in preventing the were never successful in fully closing the church, right? According to the church, not our church, the Orthodox Church, not the patriarchs, but the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that place, they've never been shut down. There have been attempts before, but this is the first time it actually has been. It's been shut down now for 2 days? 2 days. No one can go in. Interestingly enough, it's right before the holiest holiday in Christendom, Pascha, the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And of course, God shows us the veracity of our faith through the miracle of holy fire every year, which is also blocked. So it's almost like if you wanted to rebuild the third temple, you definitely want to make sure the prayers of the people who are against you aren't heard by God. And so it sounds like a sort of Jewish attempt to suppress the faithful in the Holy Land. And in many ways, I look at it as a mocking of Christians due to the rise of skepticism regarding Israel and their motives concerning this war. So do I see the shutting down of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre as an attack on Christianity? Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely what it is. And we shouldn't be confused about it. And the timing is very opportune. It's the holiest point in our liturgical calendar. I mean, even the Ottomans weren't successful in shutting it down. And so that's where very interesting some of the phrases or the quote of Elder Ephraim regarding the year that the holy fire doesn't descend. And then very interesting with the rabbi we're going to be looking at who claims that their Mashiach has been brought into the world today. So who knows what lucky Jewish woman that was who gave birth to potentially, from our Christian perspective, the Antichrist today. So wonderful, wonderful time. Red Fox throws in another 10. He says, if you want to laugh, Iran claimed they took down a B-2 and posted a picture, except the B-2 is clearly a very small model in the picture. I did see that one. But they did post a video of a F-35 that they hit. And that F-35, though they did not shoot it down, it did have to have emergency landing at one of the military bases due to some type of problem it had. So the U.S. has not confirmed that Iran was able to hit an F-35. I definitely don't believe they hit a B-2 bomber. And I saw the B-2 bomber is massive, right? And there's photos of American soldiers next to it, and they look like these little pipsqueaks next to this massive plane. And then Iran posted one that they shot. This was very early in the war, actually. This was like the second day, third day. and these Iranian soldiers are standing next to the plane, and it's at like their head level. And it's like, dude, no B-2 is that small. I don't know what you did. I don't know if it was one of those inflatables that they got Israel and the U.S. to strike. Iran's been very successful at blowing up inflatable tanks and aircraft that, from at least the satellite images, they're unable to clearly identify that they're inflated. So we've been spending, I don't know, anywhere between $4 to $5 million to destroy probably $20 blow up airplanes. So yeah, that's happened. But that is funny, Red Fox. I appreciate you sharing that. Anaxios throws in 250, says, watch Apostolic Orthodoxy's video on holy fire. Okay. Thanks for the reference. I appreciate it. Let me just check the Streamlabs real quick. Then we'll get into our first stories of the day. As I said, the first one I think we're going to dive into is probably one that is the least important. We're going to do something fun. It's always good to keep it a little light. Some of the stuff we're getting into today is so heavy, as we always do. So let's just get into the first one here. Afroman, everybody's favorite rapper when you were in like 5th grade, and your parents wouldn't let you listen to explicit song lyrics. He's the famous rapper who did Colt 45, 2 Zigzags being Rolling Papers, and then Because I Got High. Sort of soundtracks that are very, very reminiscent and nostalgic of my childhood. Anyways, Afroman, as we can see in this article here. Oh, this is let me see. Afroman wins lawsuit against the Ohio police over mocking their raid of his home. He says it's for Americans. And so, as I was saying earlier, the backdrop to this story, I don't have a video to explain the whole backdrop to you, but Afroman moved to the state of Ohio. I don't know if he's living next to Dave Chappelle. I'm not sure where exactly he's at. I know what the county is because he just got sued by him. It was like Adams County. But he moves to Ohio, and he gets raided by the local police department, the Adams County Sheriff's Department, and they accuse him of having narcotics and trafficking women. Now, obviously these things were false. They actually were looking for marijuana, despite him being a very prominent, avid marijuana smoker. They apparently did not find any at his house, and they took money from his house. And there's videos of like one of the fat sheriff's deputies taking a slice of lemon pound cake that Afroman's mother had made. And so Afroman then, after they did this, and apparently they took like a few $1,000s out of his house. They confiscated it. Again, it could have been related to drugs. And then when he started to make songs about the raid, like he made a song, this was 2 or 3 years ago, about "Can you fix my door?" And you can see it if you go over to his YouTube page. that he's been making. Like one of them was Lick 'em Low Lisa. We'll get into all this stuff. Lemon Pound Cake. And like this one, Will You Help Me Repair My Door? Got like 1.5 million views. So he takes video of them actually breaking into his home or doing their raid. They're utilizing their warrant and shows that they found nothing, but they damaged a bunch of his property. They took like a couple $1,000s and then they gave his money back except for like $400. So he got his money back, but was missing $400. So he, being angry about all this, began to make music videos mocking the local sheriff's department. That led to the local sheriff's department then suing Afroman, claiming that he defamed them. You'll see one of the videos is about a woman on the sheriff's department that sounds like a man. Okay, so if you listen to her speak, she has a voice as deep as mine. Like it sounds like, I thought she had to be on testosterone. I don't know if she is or not. Apparently she has children, so I don't know if she's married or not. But Afroman made a song called Lick 'em Low Lisa, claiming that she was a lesbian, and she tried to perform oral coitus on his spouse. So it's very funny lyrics. He made fun of the guy who ate pound cake. Another officer, he claimed that he had coitus with his wife, the officer's wife, of which totally backfires when they're on stand, as you'll see here. So they go to trial. Here's some of these songs. They go to trial, and the police officer, again, they're suing for defamation. So in a defamation lawsuit, you have to prove that the person who defamed you was making the statement as a matter of fact, right? You can't defame someone if you're just stating a opinion, or it's an allegation, or allegedly, or it's used in art. So they're claiming that Afroman made these songs as a specific way to make factual claims about them. When they went on the stand, he then, as I'll show you, when they asked, did Afroman sleep with your wife? He's like, I don't know. Well, the whole point was to say he didn't, so you can actually claim some type. So the whole cake's backfired. But here's some of the quotes. Afroman says, it's not only for artists, it's for Americans. The 51-year-old rapper, born Joseph Foreman, told CBS News after winning the case, we have freedom of speech. They did me wrong and sued me because I was talking about it. It's for the people, by the people, he said. So when the people can't use their freedom of speech, bring up the problem, address the problem, take care of the problem, and the problem never gets solved. So here is part of here's part of that song. Let me see here. This is Lemon Pound Cake. This is what he was sued for making these songs.
It made the sheriff wanna put down his gun and cut him a slice. Of what? Of what? Lemon Pound Cake.
So they're talking about this police officer right here who's doing the raid. Then he puts down his gun, cuts a slice of pound cake, and eats it. Okay, we're not going to play all the songs. We got too much to get through. But this is a video. This is the woman who he was mocking as that she was a lesbian who was crying on the stand. But this is a funny little clip.
No, I posted it because the sheriff's never supposed to raid my house in the first place. The whole raid was a mistake. All of this is their fault. If they hadn't have wrongly raided my house, there would be no lawsuit. I would not know their names. They wouldn't be on my body. They wouldn't be on my home surveillance system. And there would be no songs, nothing. My money would still be intact, nothing. So all of this is their fault. She raided my house. She just collected my camera. Then she went down on my spouse. I just don't know.
Did you hear the lyrics? He said, she raided my house and then she went down on my spouse. She's...
What I'm gonna do? Y'all keep on laughing. She gonna eat your wife's pussy. Come
Okay, so there's more funny videos, I promise. So this was him celebrating.
God bless America! Yeah! Yeah! We did it, America! Yeah! We did it! Freedom of speech! Right on! Right on! Yeah! God bless America! Yeah! Power to the people! Yeah! 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 We...
So here's some of the back and forth. The back and forth in this trial are absolutely nuts. Like, and I'm not gonna play it all because you could spend all day. If you want, you can dive deeper into the story. I'll just bring in the highlights. But there's a point in which the legal representation of Afroman is making the point that, you know, music and song lyrics are not considered factual statements, and he's like, have you ever heard of the song by Carly B? You know, Cardi B, W-A-P, WAP? And the woman on stage is like, I'm not sure. And he's like, well, and then says what it means and started reading the lyrics of that song. I mean, it was, some of the courtroom video was absolutely hysterical. But here's a little bit of Afroman on the stand.
What they did, searching your house, gave you the right to do everything you
Under
done.
the circumstance that I got freedom of speech, after they run around my house with guns and kick down my door, I got the right to kick a can in my backyard, use my freedom of speech, turn my bad times into a good time. Yes, I do. And I think I'm a sport for doing so, because I don't go to their house, kick down their doors, flip them off on their surveillance cameras, then try to play the victim and sue them.
You were at Lisa Phillips's deposition, correct?
Yes, sir.
In your lawyer's office.
Yes, sir.
Lisa's the woman you just saw crying because the song he created called "Lick 'Em Low, Lisa."
Same office where you filmed part of that video last Friday.
Yes, sir.
And you saw how upset she was when she was answering your lawyer's questions about how this had affected her, right?
Yes, yes,
And you saw your attorney say, do we need to take a break?
yes,
And you saw her say, no, let's go on and get this over with.
yes, sir.
You saw all that.
Yes.
You knew she was upset.
Just like she knew I was upset when she was standing in front of my kids with an AR-15 with her hand around the trigger ready to shoot me. Just like she knew I was upset when she cut my cameras. But I'm not a person, she is. So I'm sorry for being the victim. Let's talk about the predators.
Okay. So you saw all that. You saw how upset she was. You heard the testimony about her children. You heard the testimony at the depositions about Randy Newland's daughter who came home upset. You heard all that. But you're still posting stuff about
Yeah,
it.
because I understand it was Randy's fault and all of their fault for coming in my house in the first place. So if they hadn't came to my house, their children wouldn't be saying nothing. None of this would be going home if they had did their research and did things right. So all of this is their fault. And now they want to sue me for their mistake.
Is there anything that could change your mind about what you're doing to these deputies?
Is there anything that can change my mind about the fact that they shouldn't have been at my house in the first place? Is there anything that can change my mind about how my money shouldn't have been touched in the first place? No.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love that he goes, you're welcome. He's saying thank you to the judge. It's so funny.
She raided my house. She disconnected my cameras. Then she went down on my spouse.
It's so funny. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So anyways, that happened. And then there was video of like this one. All this guy has to do, he's suing him for defamation. He has to claim that it's a known fact that Afroman is not sleeping with his wife and that Afroman is making the affirmative factual claim that, in fact, his wife is cheating on this officer with him. That's how they can actually get some type of ruling in their favor regarding defamation. And you can hear his lawyer like, whoa, hold on, we'll get there. He doesn't understand what they're trying, like the series of questions that he needs to answer in the affirmative, and he just screws this whole thing up.
So you're claiming that is the defamation statement, is that he said he had sex with your wife?
Yes.
Okay. And that's painted you in a false light?
It's caused tremendous pain in my life.
I'll get to that. We have to go through false light first. So does it paint you in a false light?
Yes, that my wife is cheating on me with Mr. Foreman.
But we all know that's not true, correct?
I don't know.
See, yeah, the lawyers lead him on. But we all know that's not true, correct? He's supposed to say, yes, we all know that. I don't know. I don't know. Is he sleeping with my wife? What?
Wait, you don't know if your wife's cheating on you or not?
You want to go there?
No, I just want to ask that question because you said we don't know. I just
Been with
need
that
the answer.
woman since middle school.
I know.
I would hope she wouldn't. But you know what? Once somebody puts it out there for their fun and entertainment, it's out there. And it's a problem.
So it's something we cannot verify the truth of? Is it a thing that can be verified, true or false?
Ask your client.
So anyways, we'll move on beyond that. But you get all these memes now of Afroman in his in his American flag suit about how he's like a national treasure. I saved freedom of speech, and then I got high. So I thought that was the best meme of the whole thing. Anyways. Good stuff there. Let's see if you guys had any comments about it. Philosopher for Truth says, the Antichrist system is here. Man of sin is here. Yeah, well, the system's definitely being built around us. Mr. Fist says, Afroman is an international treasure. That case was just absolutely hilarious if you looked into it. Elite Beaver says, greetings from Toronto. Greetings, Elite Beaver. Glad for you to be here. ID Bro throws in 10, says, thank you. Thank you so much, ID Bro, for all your support, my man. Okay, this is a real small section on AI, but I just wanted to catch you up on the latest things that happened. A bunch of stuff happened in the last, 48 hours. One of which being that Meta, Zuckerberg, Meta, is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, and Meta had a $80 billion investment. You heard that right. $80 billion with a B. $80 billion investment into their virtual reality platform that they just shut down. They made no money. They just spent $80 billion on a VR platform for Meta. And they just announced the other day that they're having to shut it down. So I wanted to share with you all these different things that had just happened. So Zuckerberg killed the metaverse after burning $80 billion on cartoon avatars that nobody used. Sam Altman took $13 billion from Microsoft, then sold OpenAI's cloud to Amazon for $50 billion. Microsoft just found out that they funded their own competition. Anthropic made an AI that takes orders from your phone and does your work while you sleep. X dropped a dislike button and a mute entire countries button in the same week. YouTube asking you to flag AI slop is just Google getting 2 billion people to train their next model for free. 93% of U.S. jobs can now be partly done by AI. Same week, companies in the same week started giving the weakest raises since 2008, which was a global financial crisis. Apple started rejecting vibe-coded apps from the App Store. XAI is now paying Wall Street bankers $100 an hour to teach Grok how to replace Wall Street bankers. They're taking the money. A mystery AI model appeared on benchmarks beating everything. Developers think DeepSeek is quietly testing their next weapon. Bloomberg asked, is the AI bubble about to burst? The same day NVIDIA said the chip market will hit 1 trillion. One of them is dead wrong. The UK government backed down on AI copyright after artists revolted. First government to flinch. The Fed said rate hikes are back on the table and blamed AI data centers for making inflation worse. And that was all yesterday. That was all yesterday. So here is massive investment in AI. This was Unusual Whales. They follow the investments of people in Congress and the Senate. Contributed basically zero to U.S. economic growth last year per Goldman Sachs. And I thought this was a great meme encapsulating what some of the tech elites just said. So it says plumbers and electricians watching AI replacing everyone who went to college. So I forget what member of Silicon Valley, but there was a prominent spot that they were, or a few paragraphs I read. I don't know what the interview was. I don't know exactly what it was from. It looked like it was some type of convention or something like that. Anyways, he said that in the future, manual labor like construction workers, electricians, and plumbers could be the Michael Jordans of the economy, meaning that actual human skilled labor, physical labor that AI cannot do, may become such a premium that the average person will be making 6 figures in those industries. So that's what this meme is responding to, is everything that AI is doing and replacing so many jobs. I mean, lawyers, the biggest one is that AI is really threatening the the job potentials of lawyers, entire law firms. Because what is a lawyer? A lawyer is someone who looks up, different laws and regulations, understanding the legalese. There's an entire sort of linguistic framework on the redefining of words called legalese. And AI can search inquiries in the matter of seconds. So if you just make your entire law firm basically allowing the AI to research and find all the things you need for your various cases, you don't need a bunch of partners in a law firm now. So the irony is, being a lawyer has always been a prime, an ideal profession for so many people. And now it looks like AI is going to end up replacing them as well. My favorite irony is the coders, that the people who coded the AI into existence are now being replaced by the AI. That one makes my heart smile just a little bit. You remember when they told the truck drivers, hey, learn how to code? And now all the physical labor jobs, the people that didn't go to college, are going to make more money than anybody who did go to college and learned how to code. So that was one of my favorite ironies of what's going on right now. But that's all I had for the AI stuff. The next thing I want to get into, and this is serious news, and this is where it's going to lead us into all the Israel stuff, because from this point forward, we have so much to talk about regarding anti-Semitism, the war in Iran, the attack on Christianity, because Israel's not just shutting down the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. They're specifically targeting Christian villages in southern Lebanon. They've already blown up all the bridges, essentially isolating southern Lebanon and telling the Christians there, hey, you better leave. This is unstable. We're going after Hezbollah, and take everything with you because we don't know when you're going to be able to come back. This is typically what we refer to as an occupation, and it sounds eerily similar to how Israel got the territory they did from the Palestinians. So we'll get into all that but this point forward, we're really going to be focusing on the war in Israel and a lot of geopolitics. So this is a major story. Joe Ken, as I said, did 11 tours in in Iraq, just resigned from the Trump administration. He said, after much reflection, I have decided to resign my position as director of National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. It has been an honor serving under the President of the United States and DNI head Tulsi Gabbard and leading the professionals at NCTC. So if you click on his resignation letter here, and this is, wait till we get into the reaction videos, the Mark Levins of the world, the Laura Loomers, Dan Bongino, they are irate with Joe Kent. And so this is what he had to say after much reflection, as we already said. The first two sentences are there. I support the values of the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. Now, remember, Joe Kent served 11 times in Iraq, and his wife was killed, also serving. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. True. The echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States, and that should you strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. Again, true. And we know that Tulsi Gabbard, who's head of DNI, said that there was no imminent threat, that it was going to be another decade before Iran had any sort of ballistic capability of reaching the United States. This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon what we are doing in Iran and who we are doing it for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip further toward decline and chaos. You hold the cards. It was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation. So, Joe Kent then, immediately upon putting out this resignation letter, we got word, and I'm going to show you, Fox News then began raining story, literally within hours, that Joe Kent was under investigation by Kash Patel and the FBI as a leaker. So now he's a traitor. Apparently he was leaking classified information to the public, according to the FBI, and is now under investigation. Now, clearly, this is a way to discredit the man. And I'm not even here to promote Joe Kent in any particular fashion, because he used to be, when he ran for Congress, he was actually kind of soft on Israel. And in fact, there's videos of him being questioned at town halls about Israel occupying and controlling the American government, in which he pushes back against those ideas. So, anyways, clearly, he's kind of come around. Now, here's the thing I'll keep in mind. This is, if you want to continue to maintain your third-party skepticism, I would recommend keeping this in mind, that there's potentially a party struggle right now over the Republican Party, but it's not what you think it is. It's not just anti-Israel versus neocon Zionist. There's potentially, what some people are speculating is that there's an internal battle between those that are, essentially Zionist first, and those that want to reorient and actually pushing more towards war with China. Now, I'm not saying that this is fact, but this is being out there. A lot of people are believing that this is the framework and that Joe Kent, because even in the interview, I'm going to show you clips of his recent interview with Tucker Carlson. It was big news last night. That in his interview with Tucker Carlson, he highlights that China is the real threat, not Iran. Okay, so that would lead a little bit of credence to the idea that the internal struggle is not necessarily, anti-military industrial complex versus Zionism. It seems like it's two factions in favor of the military industrial complex. It's just the implementation of it is really the debate. I'm not even saying that's the case, but that is a popular narrative that many analysts and even news outlets are promoting. So what Joe Kent does, though, here's the big takeaways from my opinion. I watched the interview with Tucker Carlson. The big two takeaways, one is he talks about how his last interaction with Charlie Kirk was in the White House, and he saw Charlie Kirk. He was coming down the stairs in the West Wing, and he told Charlie Kirk hi, and Charlie responded to him by saying, "Joe, you got to stop us from going to war with Iran." So that means, and Charlie Kirk, according to Joe Kent, Charlie Kirk was the biggest anti-war with Iran voice among the confidants of Trump, his sort of counselors, and everybody else around him. According to Joe Kent, Charlie Kirk said that they were all pro-war, that he was the only one telling Trump that this is a terrible idea for the United States. And so this is the real debate. Is Trump surrounded by people that he literally is living in a false reality? Because we're going to get into his document that claims he did not know that Israel was going to bomb the natural gas field in Iran. Well, according to Israel and according to other people in the United States, the Trump administration, they're claiming that they knew full well. They're claiming that Trump said to do it. So who's lying here? Is Trump lying and throwing Israel under the bus? Or is Trump surrounded by people that are making decisions without him fully knowing, and then once the decision is made, he says, well, that's Israel's fault. We didn't know about it. According to Israel and according to some in the Trump administration, they did know. They're okay with it. So we don't know what exactly is going on. But the other part that Joe Kent brings up is that after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he, as the director, the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, wanted to dive deeper into the investigation of who is involved with Charlie Kirk. And he claims that the FBI prevented him from doing that. He also claims that after one of the last conversations he had with Donald Trump was telling him to not go to war with Iran. And what happened is that he got cut out of all the presidential briefings. And so apparently he's been on the outside of the Trump administration for the last month, which then correlates to the idea, obviously we're on day 20 of the Iran war. So if he's been cut out for over a month, then it makes sense that we're now in the war with Iran, because anybody who was critical of war with Iran, or anybody who had any mild criticism of Israel, was essentially ostracized from Trump. And so here's what I think is happening, is that Trump is surrounded by Zionists and he is not getting clear intel. He is not getting clear information. So anyways, I want to play sections of this interview that Joe Kent had with Tucker Carlson last night, because you're going to see how all the Zionists are absolutely up in arms and furious with everything he had to say.
And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space. And he said, Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran. Very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
No, I don't think you are.
because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public, that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran.
So that would insinuate that Israel is possibly on the hook for Charlie Kirk's assassination, according to the person who was leading the National Counterterrorism Center at the time, wanting to dive deeper into the investigation. Now, this wasn't the only case that he said he was blocked on. Claiming that Iran was behind the potential assassination of Donald Trump, especially the most famous incident being in Butler, Pennsylvania, that Crooks, he wanted to dive deeper into who that kid was, what was going on. Well, he was also blocked from doing that. So when it came to Trump's potential assassination, when it came to Charlie Kirk's actual assassination, he was prevented by the U.S. government and the intelligence agencies from getting any information or doing any independent investigation into it. This is him, again, stating the same thing, but I was going to fast forward to the point. You can see Tucker Carlson's response. Now, Tucker Carlson came out immediately after the assassination of Charlie Kirk and talked about text messages in which Charlie Kirk, remember he had that famous, and don't take me as Candace Owens, okay? I'm not doing the Candace Owens things, but he did have that famous meeting in the Hamptons, right? And he was pressured by Bill Ackman, these billionaire Zionists, about utilizing TPUSA to making sure that the sentiment, or at least the message of TPUSA for young people, especially people on college campuses, was pro-Israel and pro a war with Iran. Apparently, Charlie Kirk had had enough of that, and he started. This is what, again, Candace has shared her text messages insinuating the same thing. I'm not endorsing Candace Owens, though. Do not confuse what I'm saying. I'm not endorsing some of the wild stuff she's been saying. But I want you to see Tucker's reaction after hearing that, because you can tell it really kind of shakes him up, and he's insinuated that Israel may have a connection. And remember, as soon as Charlie Kirk was assassinated, who was the first person to claim they didn't do it? Before Donald Trump had even tweeted or responded to his assassination, Benjamin Netanyahu, Mr. Bibi himself, had to let the world know that he and Israel weren't the ones that killed Charlie. Very strange thing for a world leader to say. But listen to Tucker's response here.
Security, what happened to Charlie Kirk?
Can I just ask you to pause on the Charlie Kirk because it upsets me to hear what you're saying, to be reminded that he was murdered, but also to hear you confirm what was reported in the media several months ago, that your office had been blocked from investigating his murder. That does not make sense to me. I don't understand why you would ever turn down help in an investigation from a U.S. agency with a lot of experience in gathering intelligence on things. That's your job.
The FBI will say, and the DOJ will say, that because it's an ongoing case, it's a Utah State case, that back off, they've got it. They've got a smoking case. They've got the fingerprints on the gun, and they've got the kid.
But the FBI was involved in the case.
The FBI was involved. The FBI's basically said that they're deferring to Utah because it's now a state case.
But they've established a precedent for federal investigation of this crime.
Yeah, and the National Counterterrorism Center's mandate is to investigate any foreign ties, to see if there's potentially any foreign ties. If we don't find any foreign ties, we back off. What I'm saying, without getting into too much detail, is there was more for us to investigate.
There was You believe there was reason to investigate foreign ties to Charlie Kirk's murder and were told by the FBI, DOJ?
FBI and DOJ, yeah.
No, you're not allowed to investigate that.
Stop. It's done. They basically cut off our access to be able to get into that information. And look, I didn't even say necessarily that I believe there's 100% foreign ties. There were data points that we needed to investigate. I mean, I think anybody who's even, looked at any kind of police investigation, you get 100 leads, you run them down, and 99 don't mean anything. We still had a lot more leads to run down that pertained to some kind of a foreign nexus that we were stopped from investigating. And,
that just strikes me as inconceivable that could happen.
So, certainly doesn't lead to someone concluding that Israel has no connection at all to it. And here's a video of him also saying the same thing about crooks. So what's going on? Why is the U.S. government preventing the head of the National Counterterrorism Center from looking at potential international ties? And in this instance, the official narrative is that Iran was behind it. So you'd think Counterterrorism Center would be tasked with finding out how connected he was to Iran. Why would they block him from investigating crooks when the U.S. government says it was Iran that was behind the Butler assassination?
The current president was the subject of a near successful assassination attempt, like recently.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to look into, very obviously, or divulge information that everyone knows they have. For example, the surveillance tape from the shooting range at which Thomas Crooks trained, because it would answer the question, was he training with somebody? And if so, who? They have that footage and they won't release it. What could possibly be the explanation for that?
I know what the result is. The result is people come to their own conclusions, and this is where crazy conspiracy theories come from. And then those conspiracy theories usually are easy to debunk or make the people saying them sound crazy. So then the actual question never gets answered.
Right? I'm sorry.
So did you pick up on that? So the former leader of the National Counterterrorism Center just talked about how what would be the benefit of the U.S. government not wanting to release information that would provide clarity on the Butler assassination attempt, Charlie Kirk's assassination. He says, well, again, without saying it explicitly, they would prefer people to make up their own minds and come to their own conclusions. Again, Candace Owens being one that sort of discredits people that have legitimate conspiratorial ideas about these events and how they unfolded. In many ways, Candace Owens is almost a psyop to discredit anybody who's talking about these concepts about potential Israeli involvement, potential nefarious organizations, all this different stuff. Now, why would the U.S. government want that to continue unless it's beneficial for them to cover up the actual story?
Sorry, can you say that for people who haven't lived in Washington? Okay, I try to explain this to people all the time, because this has been ongoing since at least the Kennedy assassination. But this is a very serious and reoccurring thing. It's a tactic. And you just explained it better than anyone I've ever heard. Can you just do that again if you can recall it from memory?
Yeah, I mean, so basically you give no information whatsoever on something that's obvious that there should be information. Like you outlined, there's potentially footage of crooks at the shooting range. Again, Police 101, go get the tapes. Let's figure it out. If you don't want to address that question, then you go silent on it and you say you can't ask that question, which then creates people who come out of kind of nowhere and they start drawing their own conclusions.
Right.
Knowing the way the internet works, I mean, half of them, if not more, are probably going to be so far off in left field and made by legitimate kooks or bots that then you can just be like, oh, these people asking these questions about that tape at the video range.
It's space
They're
aliens.
All crazy conspiracy theorists. They say it's a UAP or whatever. And so then you've just, diverted all attention away from the thing that you're trying to conceal, and now everyone's focused on the crazies.
Man.
And then the second someone asks a legitimate question, they're crazy.
Seems to be the case right now. And then here it talks about how Joe Kent pushed to examine the foreign actors were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination before the FBI shut it down. And look at some of the fallout here. So the New York Post ran a story today Ex-Trump counterterror honcho, okay, seems unnecessary, Joe Kent, peddles bizarre conspiracy theory that Israel had a hand in Charlie Kirk's murder. That's not what he said. That's not what he said at all. What did he say? He said the last thing he heard from Charlie Kirk in the West Wing was, Joe, stop us from going to war with Iran, while they are passing each other on the stairs. So he didn't actually say that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. What he did say is that they were wanting to investigate potential international ties, foreign ties to the assassination, and were stopped by the FBI and the DOJ. Seems kind of strange. And so this person says, hi, Grok, who owns the New York Post and what is their relationship to Israel? Well, if you come down here, the New York Post is owned by New York Publishing Holdings Company, a subsidiary of News Corp, which is controlled by the Murdoch family. Rupert Murdoch founded it in 1976 and repurchased it in 1993. Control has since been passed to his son. Rupert Murdoch has been a vocal supporter of Israel, describing it as, quote, front line of Western democratic civilization, and receiving awards from the Anti-Defamation League for his stance against anti-Semitism and efforts to delegitimize Israel. The paper's conservative editorial line generally aligns with the strong U.S.-Israel ties. And so now I'm going to show you the response to essentially this fallout from everything that Joe Kent had to say. As you listen to him, seems like a very reasonable guy. Everything he said, very reasonable, makes sense, it's coherent. Here you have Ben Shapiro freaking out and calling him a conspiratorial letter as conspiratorial idiocy. Now, I read you the letter. The letter was not that crazy. Here's the letter. Remember, we just looked at it. Not that crazy at all. Seems like a guy, his wife died in war. He's been to Iraq 11 times. He's seen combat. He's actually fought some of the Iranian proxies, the Shia proxies in the Middle East himself. And he said he doesn't want men and women to die for a war on behalf of Israel. Okay, seems like a sentiment most of us have. Now let's see how Ben Shapiro responds to it.
Counterterrorism Center and issued a... Joe Kent quit his job at the National Counterterrorism Center and issued a scathing letter designed to undermine President Trump. The letter is deeply, deeply conspiratorial. It states openly that, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby.
Now, from this video forward, you're going to see the new anti-Semitism has just dropped. What is it? You are not allowed to say that the United States, Trump, are any way influenced by the semi-secular state of Israel, or you are actually an anti-Semite. I'm about to show you about 5 videos claiming that. All these different people, it's the same trope. If you claim Israel influenced the United States into war with Iran, that is a anti-Semitic trope, and that is a dangerous right-wing narrative that has been peddled throughout the centuries.
Now, that is conspiracy trash. It's also kind of strange since President Trump has said that it's conspiracy trash. So apparently, Trump is so deeply, deeply enthralled to those strange, powerful American lobbies. We're not going to say it, that he apparently has been so bamboozled by them that he's still under the impression that he's his own man. But here's the thing. President Trump is his own man. He makes his own decisions. And as per our usual arrangement, Trump's critics are cowards who are simply unwilling to acknowledge that Trump is the one making the call. But Joe Kent continued, quote, early in this administration, high-ranking...
You see what the play is here? You see how they've surrounded Trump in every direction by Zionists? Do you see that? And then if he is to respond and do everything that they themselves are asking him to do, if you then say that they're influencing him, oh, well, Trump, this is what Bibi said today. Trump, you can't manipulate Trump. Really? It seems like he's awfully manipulated. According to Marco Rubio, he was manipulated on February 28th that began this war. He was manipulated.
Ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pre-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that should you strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie. And is the same.
Vagine, you're totally. What happened to his eyebrows? What happened to? Did he always have eyebrows this thick? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember his eyebrows being that thick before. They truly do look like two caterpillars above his eyes. Is this a new thing? Is this a new fashion trend? I don't get it.
Same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women.
And what does he mean by that? Well, who was it that kept telling the Senate and Congress and the president that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction? Who was that? If I recall, I believe that was Benjamin Netanyahu. What country does he represent? I believe that's Israel.
Again, the idea here seems to be that President Trump is a moron, misled into war by nefarious Israelis and unnamed influential members of the American media. Don't say it. Again, apparently, President Trump has no agency and no thoughts. Kent's letter is replete with this conspiratorial idiocy, including, as we just saw, the idea that it was Israel that forced the original Iraq war, an idea totally and utterly unsupportable by any evidence, given the fact that the actual prime minister of Israel at the time, Ariel Sharon, opposed the Iraq war. This stuff is brain rot. Now listen, we should all be thankful for Joe Kent's long...
Notice he doesn't mention Benjamin Netanyahu talking about weapons of mass destruction. You know, one of the things that Joe Kent talked about is that he himself saw intelligence that was given to the United States from Israel who had facts in it, but it wasn't fully explicated, so it led to potential conclusions that weren't actually true. And he said he saw that multiple times in the year that he was there in office working at the National Counterterrorism Center, that it seemed like Israeli intelligence would be sort of peddled through the administration, and only a handful of people would actually push back and then provide a fuller context of what was being provided. Notice he never mentions Benjamin Netanyahu. Who do you think Joe Kent is referring to when he's talking about how Israel got us into the war with Iraq? Who do you think he's referring to, Ben?
Long and honorable military service. We can also be glad that he's leaving, since his ideology is the same as that of Tucker Carlson, the guy who says that the war is disgusting and evil and who has been busy sexting with the mullahs. Tucker Carlson.
The war is disgusting. The war is evil. This is led by an Antichrist spirit. And then they claim because he was... So Tucker Carlson is being investigated by the FBI as well, if you didn't know, because they broke into his phone and saw that he was texting people in the Iranian regime to set up an interview. You know, like he did with Putin. You know, like he's done with multiple other figures, like he recently did with Mike Huckabee. And so they're claiming that he is actually a operative on behalf of Iran, potentially. And so the FBI had to open an investigation into Tucker Carlson. So that's where Ben Shapiro gets off saying he's sexting the mullahs. Oh, okay.
Carlson calls Kent a personal friend and, quote, the bravest man I know. Frankly, I think that it is a good thing that Kent is not in this position. We cannot have a director of counterterrorism who is somehow advocating preemptive surrender to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism in the middle of a war.
It's also frustrating. Mark Levin, I can't hardly listen to this guy, so I'm not even going to play you a video, but he's up in arms about it. And just a month ago, so you can see, just a month ago, Mark Levin requested Joe Kent to come on his show. He said, Joe, I love you. Would you want to do a full hour interview on my show? I'd love to have you. And Joe Kent responded by saying, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then Mark Levin said, yeah, get in contact with my people. So he tells Joe, hey, I want to have you on, but you need to contact all my people to set it all up. Joe Kent never went through and tried to follow up on getting on Mark Levin's show. So then Mark Levin posts, "No wonder Joe Kent didn't get back to us to come on my radio show. I would have forced this information out of him anyway." Again, breaking news claiming that he is leaking information in his role as National Counterterrorist Center Director. Joe Kent publicly replied to Mark Levin's invitation to appear on his show, stating, "Sure, let's go." So it was Mark Levin that didn't have him on. It had nothing to do with Joe Kent. Here is Dan Bongino, who's really fallen from grace, and he doesn't look well. I mean, look at his crazy eyes. He's looking more and more like a small alien gray. Don't you guys see that? He's taking on the aesthetic of like an alien gray or something. It's almost morphing into a new species. So Bongino, as I'm sure you guys know, is famous at this point for claiming that he believes that Epstein killed himself, right? And he was deputy director of the FBI. So he was one under Kash Patel during the Charlie Kirk assassination, in which we're getting no information on. And, of course, the Epstein debacle by the Trump administration. And so what does Dan Bongino do? Well, he goes and posts on the Bongino Report this little video. Notice all he does is call Joe Kent names. That's all they're doing. I mean, what did Ben Shapiro provide? Any sort of argument against what Joe was presenting about how Israel is influencing us, that the media industrial complex is also influencing, that Trump is surrounded by Zionists that are influencing his decisions? They don't refute any of that. What they do is they just call him names.
The truth will always set you free, every time. Now you're seeing the grift totally, completely exposed. Bare ass out there and everything.
So what's the grift? They're claiming that Joe Kent resigned so that he can write a tell-all book and create a new podcast and make tons and tons of money. According to Joe Kent in the interview with Tucker Carlson, he didn't leak. He has no plans on writing a book, and he has no intention of becoming some podcaster media mogul. So there is no grift going on. He has children. He's interested in just going and spending time with his family. I assume he's probably going to run for re-election, because at this point, what's the best thing you could do if you're a politician? If you wanted to run in the future on a Republican ticket, the best thing you could do is denounce Israel. I mean, I think James Fishback, the gubernatorial candidate in Florida, but if Joe Kent, if he comes out and he's more outspoken against Israel and their involvement and manipulation in the U.S. government, yeah, I think that's going to sway a lot of people in that direction. So if you do have political ambitions, I think the best thing you can do is actually denounce what's going on, which Kent did. So anyways, that's the grift. Dan Bongino is arguing that this is the grift he has. He's going to try to make millions of dollars. Joe Kent said he has no intention of doing that at all.
Everything. Joe Kent's a liar. As I said yesterday and the day before, Joe was a friend. Joe disgraced himself last night. Joe's history of service to the country, beyond reproach. Period. That does not change anything about what happened last night, however, that Joe Kent is a liar. Calling someone a liar is a big deal, and I know that.
What kind of pressure does it require to get a president who campaigned against exactly this thing for 10 years to do exactly this thing? What does it take to do that?
I wish I knew definitively. I think there's two potentials, there's two schools of thought. I mean, one is the media echo chamber, the donors, the way the Israelis come in and kind of launder the information like I described previously.
In 20 seconds, you have it right. This is the mark for suckers. You fall for the hidden knowledge scam and the gatekeeper theory that you voted for Donald Trump, but he's not smart enough to know what's going on. Donald Trump does not know what's going on. Quote, the Israelis have laundered intelligence. I saw the intelligence. So did he. He's lying. That is a lie. Yeah, that's right, folks. The NSA and its huge budget and the CIA and the FBI, CTD, Counterterror Division, and our Counterespionage Division counter intel. Everyone's just sitting around jerking off all day. You believe that shit?
Didn't sound like you refuted anything Joe Kent said. He calls him names. He kept referring to him as a liar, claiming I guess the only thing that he made an argument is that I saw the same intelligence. Israel didn't launder intelligence. Well, okay. Joe Kent saw then the same intelligence and argued that it was laundered through Israel to lead to inconclusive results so that potential actions may be taken in response to the intelligence they shared. Notice they have no response. It's like this narrative about Israel getting us into the war. It's totally spiraling out of control by the handlers, by the people that want to promote this idea that somehow us going to another Middle Eastern war is going to make America safer. Obviously, it's not. In fact, it's going to destroy the United States. What is it with these people? Why are they unable to make an actual argument against what Joe Kent says? This is the sentiments of the majority of Americans right now. The vast majority of Americans believe that this is Israel's war. And you're going to see here that if you continue to say that, you're actually anti-Semitic. According to Vox, anti-war anti-Semitism is still anti-Semitism. So if you claim Israel's getting us into this war, it's officially anti-Semitic to say so. Here is what ran just hours after Joe Kent resigned on Fox News.
A moment ago, sources are saying that Joe Kent, the former director of the United States National Counterterror Center, this is from Semaphore, he just resigned. He's now under FBI investigation for allegedly leaking classified information. And the investigation predates his departure. Congressman, your reaction to that tonight? Wow.
Well, there's a lot there, and I think that we need to let this investigation play out, but we shouldn't tolerate any leakers in the administration, particularly regarding classified national security interests and information. So we'll let this play out and see where it goes, but if he was leaking, he ought to be held accountable just like anybody else would be.
Now, 5 minutes ago, he seemed to think that Iran was a big threat, and then suddenly that threat went away. It was very odd. Congressman, thank you very much.
Okay. So the FBI has him under investigation. And here we'll see, again, anything that he has said regarding Israel getting us into the war is anti-Semitism. Here is John Bolt saying the exact same thing.
I did an interview with Tucker Carlson where he argued that he believed Israel pulled the United States into this war. This is what Joe Kent had to say.
So the imminent threat that the Secretary of State is describing is not from Iran, it's from Israel.
Exactly. And I think this speaks to the broader issue. Who is in charge of our policy in the Middle East? Who is in charge of when we decide to go to war or not? In this case, with what the Secretary described, and later on the President, later on the Speaker of the House, and the way the events played out, the Israelis drove the decision to take this action, which we knew would set off a series of events, meaning the Iranians would retaliate.
The president has said publicly that that's not true. Israel did not force the United States' hand here. But what did you hear in that answer there?
Well, I heard anti-Semitism. I mean, this is a trope that repeats itself throughout history. The Jews are in back of everything and maneuvered poor, innocent Donald Trump into doing this.
If you say the Jews in Israel got us into this war, that means you think the Jews are responsible for everything in the world. It's so predictable.
Look, this conversation took place with Bibi Netanyahu in the first term. I certainly recommended it. It didn't persuade Trump then. He wasn't conned into this. He came to it of his own volition because he thought it would benefit him. It's not turning out so well for him because of many mistakes he's made. But this idea that somehow you can blame it on Israel, I think it really enters into the political debate something that's very troubling in American politics if we're going down this anti-Semitic road.
So that's their only response. They have no argument against it other than, well, Trump's not weak and he's not an idiot, and you're an anti-Semite if you say otherwise. Here is Stephen A. Smith. Again, I told you, he's the sports analyst. And many people are believing because he's bought by Disney. They paid him, I think like $100 million or something contract, Stephen A. Smith. Many people, okay, let me back up. Stephen A. Smith, for those of you who don't know, is a popular sports analyst on ESPN. He runs this show in the morning called First Take, and he's very bombastic, outspoken, controversial, and he is fairly articulate in how he goes about and talks about sports. Well, okay. He signed this massive deal with Disney, like $100 million. And then they allowed him to start his own podcast. So now he has his own podcast on YouTube. That's what this clip is coming from, in which he's constantly getting into politics. And it's not like this guy is politically savvy or knows a bunch about politics. He doesn't. And what he does constantly is he plays the center line, almost like that's what he's supposed to do. So he says all these things that are sort of semi-pro-Trump, but then he'll criticize Trump, and he'll say something that's kind of left of center, but then he'll criticize the woke. And so he's clearly manipulating, and many people speculate that he may run on a Republican ticket, he may run on a Democratic ticket, but the rumor is that he has serious money behind him to try to make some type of presidential run in the future. Who knows? But here's him weighing in on the Joe Kent issue.
I think the president is fucking up. But I don't support that. And to the Jewish community out there, let me be very, very clear. I don't blame them if they're in an uproar over Joe Kent, because what you're doing is basically saying that Israel instigated this war. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu...
Exactly. How is that anti-Semitic?
Netanyahu was on the record saying no.
And he was on the record saying Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and they didn't. I mean, Bibi Netanyahu said Iran was going to get a nuclear weapon in 2 weeks for the last 30 years. Who cares what Netanyahu has to say? He's wrong more than he's right.
Other Israelis and other members of the Jewish community are saying no. And a statement like that by Joe Kent could easily be used as an excuse for individuals out there to engage in anti-Semitism, which is fomented and grown, and we all need to speak out against that. Another poll I personally did on X, again, over 15,000 responses. I asked the question, did the U.S. enter this war on its own terms or because of allies? On my X platform, Stephen A. Smith, 75% said the war is being influenced by Israel.
Gosh, that is a lot of anti-Semites in America. Holy crap. All these people are anti-Semitic? Here's your guys' favorite senator, Lindsey Graham, and his little ladybugs.
One, I think he would use it. If you don't believe he would kill all the Jews, that would be a mistake. Certainly the Jewish people believe that. And this idea that we were drugged into the war by Israel, that's the oldest game literally in the book. If it weren't for the Jews, we'd all be better off. It's the Jews that are always getting us in trouble. What an offensive thing to say. Israel consulted with us. We do have common values, and we have a common enemy. They don't just chant death to Israel, they chant death to America, the Iranian regime. They got our blood on their hands just. So the idea that somehow that President Trump got hoodwinked by the Jews is like, enough already. If you know anything about President Trump, nothing could be further from the truth. And you're just giving life to the idea that's been around for like 2,000 years with the Jewish people. Enough.
Huh, what also has been around for 2,000 years? Gosh, what happened 2,000 years ago? I can't really put my finger on it, guys. Here's Greenblatt asked specifically, did Israel influence Donald Trump? And he says, let's talk about anti-Semitism.
We are now in the middle of a war in the Middle East, in Iran specifically. But there is a lot of debate among politicians, among the public here in the U.S., among some very influential voices, by the way, in the Republican Party, including people like Tucker Carlson and others, who have suggested that we have been pulled, the U.S. has been pulled into this war by Israel. And there is a view among some that that unto itself creates these other questions about anti-Semitism and this sort of interconnection between those who have problems with Israel and those who have problem with Jews.
So this is a good opportunity to talk about anti-Semitism, right? Some might call it, they call it the oldest hatred. Some might call it the oldest conspiracy theory. It's been around for thousands.
So he asked him, you know, a lot of the people in the Republican Party, there's a faction that's arguing that Israel influenced Trump's decision to engage in this war. What are your thoughts? Well, let's talk about anti-Semitism.
Thousands of years, and it's typically involved scapegoating and blaming a small group of people for things that are going wrong. This has been happening for ages and ages, and one of those age-old tropes is that Jews aren't loyal to the country where they live. Remember, they lived as a minority in exile for thousands of years, and that not only they're not loyal, they cause the world's wars.
Well, Ben Shapiro told us the greatest grantor for his support to be American was that the U.S. militarily supports Israel. That sounds like a Jewish person saying that their primary identity is with Israel and that their sympathy and patriotism for America is totally dependent on whether the U.S. supports Israel. I mean, there's a public example right there, Mr. Greenblatt.
Right? Again, this is an age-old trope that the Jews caused World War I, that the Jews caused World War II, and the Jews caused the Gulf War. And now we're seeing people like Tucker Carlson make this claim. Now look, Tucker Carlson is probably the most prominent public bigot in our lives today.
Do these people even watch Tucker Carlson? He's like the most milquetoast critic of Israel, right? Every time he mentions Israel, he's like, well, but I love Israel. I've been to Israel. You know, I love the Jewish people. You know, he always has to make these caveats every time he criticizes Israel. And yet he's the most notorious and vicious bigot in America.
Like, look, he has platformed Holocaust deniers. He's platformed virulent anti-Semites. He's engaged in this kind of rhetoric for a long time. So it shouldn't be surprised that he goes there. But I think, to be honest with you, there's a reasonable debate to have about this war. There's a reasonable debate to have, like, how's it being prosecuted? Do we understand what the objectives are, et cetera? But it's unreasonable to suggest that President Trump is being manipulated by a small group of people.
That's unreasonable. You cannot say that. Even if the director of the National Counterterrorism Center of the United States has insinuated that based on his reading of intelligence and top-level classified documents, you cannot say that. That is a 2,000-year anti-Semitic trope. Don't you understand? And so here is Sam Harris, notorious rational atheist, who doesn't believe in the Bible, right? Doesn't believe in Scripture, but if you say that the Jews don't have a right to their homeland, well, that's anti-Semitic. As you can see, the post says, Tucker cornered Huckabee into endorsing a biblical mandate for Israel to take the entire Middle East, the Greater Israel Project, reconstructing the Old Testament empire. Then used it to signal to his audience that Christians owe Jews nothing. Sam Harris breaks down what he calls a new and alarming strain of Christian politics.
He's basically saying, listen, we're Christians. We don't need to defend these Jews at all. Their holy book is irrelevant to us. It's just barbarism in there.
Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis. Yeah. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all. I mean, I thought that was fascinating and well worth watching. And the thing that was both interesting and alarming from my point of view there is that Tucker clearly believes, and I have every reason to think he's right to believe this, is that he has an audience that it was prepared for him to put a lot of daylight between him and his Christianity and, you know, plain vanilla evangelical Christianity around these issues. I mean, so the way he went after Huckabee based on a differentiation between the New Testament and the Old Testament. I mean, he walked Huckabee into the Old Testament, so explicitly with respect to, I think it was Genesis 15, and a claim that, you know, that God gave the Jews all the land between the Euphrates and the Nile, you know, pretty much all of the Middle East.
Does Israel have the right to that land because you're appealing to Genesis. Yeah. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all. But I don't think that's what we're talking about here today.
And Huckabee, tried to pirouette, saying, Israel's not asking for that, but he knew, Tucker knew that he was going to have to sign on the dotted line on the biblical mandate, and Huckabee did. He said, "Yeah, if they, but if they did it, I couldn't say anything. I couldn't object. It's in the Bible, right?" And so he got, he's gotten vilified for that, but. What was interesting about that is that Tucker seemed to be expressing a theology, and perhaps there's a name for this that I'm just not aware of, that was that draws a very clear line of demarcation between the Old and the New Testament in a way that is, I've heard it's been drawn before, and even in Huckabee's style of Christianity, but he's basically saying, listen, we're Christians. We don't have to care about the Old Testament at all, right? There's just a lot of barbarism in there. He went after the whole Amalekite business. That's just genocide, right? Like, listen, we don't need to defend these Jews at all. Their holy book is irrelevant to us. It's just barbarism in there. Christ is king. All we have to care about is Jesus, and we can just wash our hands at the Jews, right? And then
So are you catching what he's putting down right now? So Sam Harris, who has literally built his career on talking about the Bible, in fact, what he called the barbarism of the Old Testament, you could go online right now and find so many examples of Sam Harris utilizing those biblical verses against Christians in debates, arguing about the nonsense of the concept of God and their religion and moral inconsistencies between Old and New Testament. So again, this idea that he's supporting the Old Testament, that's very much contrary to everything that he's put out publicly. But now, interestingly enough, with all this criticism and heat that's coming on Israel, he's saying there's a really problematic strain in Christianity right now. And it's that these Christians believe that their tradition is totally unique and separate from the Jews of the Old Testament, and that they don't need to concern themselves then with the desires and ambitions of modern Jews that don't worship the Old Testament faith, right? The temple doesn't exist. These are Talmudic. This is rabbinic Judaism. It's a totally different religion. In fact, it's newer than Christianity. But if you don't support it, well, then your Christianity is problematic. So according to Sam Harris, the only Christianity he likes is the Mike Huckabee Christian Zionist flavor of Christianity, because what does it do? Well, it secures support for Israel. It secures military engagement on behalf of Israel. Very strange for a secular, rational atheist to be making, huh? Weird how that happens.
Implicit in all of that is, we know the Jews just killed Jesus, and fuck.
They did. Just read the Bible. Who brought Christ to Pontius Pilate? Who did Pontius Pilate say, his blood is on your hands? Who was that? Who chose Barabbas instead of Christ? Who was that? I can't quite put my finger on it.
Fuck him, right? And so he put Huckabee and all of evangelical Christianity in a very difficult position with respect to his audience, which I'm amazed to find that it exists, which is, Christians prepared to say, all of this traditional support for Israel and a veneration of the Old Testament even is behind us, right? There's just this kind of America first, Christ is king, fuck the Jews politics, and I found that pretty interesting and surprising. I hadn't seen that done before.
It's also expected, isn't it? Here's Greenblatt on CNN saying the exact same thing about anti-Semitism.
We are seeing Jewish people, the Jewish state, blamed for the war in the Middle East. That is wrong. It is wrong to scapegoat. It is wrong to hold Jewish people accountable for something you don't like on the other side of the planet. And we really need leaders on all sides, in politics, running for office, podcasters, to stop with the conspiracies, to stop with the accusations, and then tell us, but we oppose anti-Semitism. You don't get to say you're opposed to hate if you're trafficking in hateful conspiracy theories. Everyone needs to dial down the rhetoric, to take a step back, and to start doing something to stop this epidemic before it gets even worse.
So it's hate speech now. It's not just it's hate speech to say that Israel has manipulated Trump and the U.S. government into conflict. Amazing. It's amazing. Now, there was one story that I skipped over. I had it in the wrong spot. Worthwhile news, U.S. cancels all mRNA vaccine development, stating it has more risks than benefits. Conspiracy theorists. Right again. Right again. Remember when they pushed that on all of us? And here's a couple one-off stories I thought were quite funny. What you're witnessing right here in this video, I'm going to mute it, is a son who had a sick father. So obviously the Hajj recently happened. You know, Sneeko went to the Kaaba stone in Mecca. Well, this guy began to try to choke his father to death inside the Prophet's mosque in Medina, claiming that if he killed his dad and he died at the mosque, he would go straight to heaven. I kid you not. I kid you not. So this video is of a son trying to strangle his sick father to death at the mosque, thinking if he killed him there, he'd go straight to heaven. And then because we always have to have some more Muslim news, this is a imam in Florida. It says, new Muslim imam speaking at an event in Florida. They say, I want the governor of Florida to be Muslim. I want Muslims in the House, Muslim senators. We don't apologize about jihad. We are not afraid of jihad. Jihad is who we are, which is exactly what us Christians say about Muslims. Jihad is what they are. And so we're not going to dive too deep into all the Islamic stuff, but it's just another example of us conspiracy theorists talking about what the Muslims actually believe, and then they just come out and say exactly what's going on. Jack says, DPH, be careful. Jewish women will come out of nowhere and try to sway you like Kanye. I'm already married, bro. Ain't no Jewish woman getting me. I'm already married. Elite Beaver. Oh, hold on. We had ID Bro throws in 5, says Meta also worked on the Roman Catholic Church for virtual evangelizing / priest and others. Well, another project they lost money on, I suspect. Red Fox throws in 10, says Kyoto University researchers have unveiled Buddharoid, an AI-powered humanoid robot designed to dispense Buddhist teachings instead of closing the temples. Interesting. I had not seen that. Elite Beaver throws in 2, says, after Butler, Trump fell in line. It seems that way in many regards. Definitely seems that way. Mr. Fist throws in 10, says, are you saying Sweet Candy Owens was right about Kirk and Israel? Well, potentially she was. At least we're getting information that would insinuate that she was. Dang, maybe she's onto something with the ancient time-traveling Sumerian theories too. Yeah, I don't know about that. But stay tuned. Maybe that will be disclosed as well. That actually Zachariah Sitchin was right about the whole thing. Trail Hike North throws in 2, thank you very much. And Aaron throws in 5, says, same playbook as JFK and RFK killings, cover up and misdirection. Yeah, it seems to be the case. Elite Beaver throws in 2, says, Shapiro got eyebrow hair plugs. I don't know what's going on with that dude's eyebrows. I don't remember them being that furry. I mean, those things look like they may be breathing. Someone needs to check if his eyebrows have a pulse on them. Nathaniel throws in 5, says, these Zionists must be possessed by the Tasmanian devil. They become so incoherent and unhinged as him when you try to call out Israel. No, for sure. I mean, and this Joe Kent stuff is just demonstrating where all this anti-Semitism is going. Any criticism of Israel will be deemed anti-Semitic. Dan Vicious throws in 5, says, there are so many podcasters / influencers on every side of Trump that it's beyond trusting anyone's rhetoric. Yeah, I agree with that. Real discernment is going to be vital. Amen to that, man. Amen to that. I totally.
One, I think he would use it. If you don't believe he would kill all the Jews, that would be a mistake. Certainly the Jewish...
How did that thing get... Lindsey Graham's ghost is turning on videos that I've already exited out of. What's going on? All right, guys, smash that like. We got so much more to get into. And the next story is probably the most important. It has to do with the shutting down of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, something that has never been done in the history of Christianity. And again, it's not going to help the critics who are deemed anti-Semitic that it's Israel, not the Ottomans. It wasn't even the Ottomans. The Ottomans never even shut down the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, but Israel has. So I just want to do some quick housekeeping. Guys, smash that like. If you would like to join our men's only community, we're doing great stuff over at school.com/Logos Academy. We're currently getting ready to dive into chapter 8 of the Orthodox Survival course this coming Tuesday. We meet every single Tuesday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to join those meetings, get access to all of our previous videos, the classroom, all that stuff, we'd be happy to have you. Also, if anyone's interested in sponsoring a stream, the next sponsor stream will be on the life of a monk on Mount Athos. We'll be looking into monastic asceticism. It's a topic I've never really addressed. But that is also going to be coming potentially this week or Sunday or Monday. I got to finish the research on that. But if you have a topic you would like to sponsor and you'd like for me to dive into, do sponsor a stream. I'd love to see what topic you have in mind. And also, don't forget, I have the #1 book, Christian Critique on Transhumanism, that is published. Check out Return to Babylon from Adam to Antichrist. If you have not, you can get author-signed copies right here on my website, or you can get cheaper copies over on Amazon. And then if you are interested in peptides, use promo code COTEL, C-O-T-E-L, over at leveluphealth.com. These are high-quality peptides. I can assure you I'm using them myself. Use promo code COTEL, you'll get a discount. And also, if you're in the market for any Orthodox items, be it Orthodox crosses, prayer ropes, incense, study Bibles, you can get a discount using promo code COTEL over at orthodoxdepot.com. Orthodoxdepot.com. This is a great American Orthodox company right here in the Midwest, so support our fellow Orthodox. All right, next topic, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Let me pull that up right now. Okay, so here's the big news. Massive, massive news for us Christians. The site of Jesus' crucifixion forced to shut for Holy Week, an unprecedented move tied to biblical prophecies of the Antichrist. That is a Daily Mail article. So this is mainstream news. Here is I think, what is this? Keep Talking Greece. So this is a Greek article that I found. This was posted yesterday. And so Israel closes the Holy Sepulchre Church. Greece is concerned about the holy fire. Now, it is at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that the miracle of holy fire descends. And if you've seen those videos, it's amazing. The flame does not burn. I recently told a friend yesterday, I told a friend about Israel closing the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and mentioned the mystery of the holy fire. Never heard of it. So I showed him a video of how it doesn't burn beard hair, facial hair, head hair. It doesn't burn your skin. People put their hand in the flame. He was blown away by those videos. He never heard of holy fire. And so in this article, it talks about how, as we said, Israel has already closed it indefinitely for security reasons, and this is the first time it happens in the history of Christianity, people. In the history of Christianity. At the same time, Greece is highly concerned about the transport of the holy fire. There has been intense concern among Greek Orthodox Christians in recent days amid conflicts in the Middle East about what will happen during Pascha, Easter, and the reception of the holy fire from Jerusalem. According to a report by Mega TV, the old city of Jerusalem, which under normal circumstances is bustling with life, today presents the image of a ghost town. Entry to the city is prohibited, as are the operation of shops, while the monasteries and museums in the area remain closed. The Jewish Passover begins on April 1st and lasts until the 9th of the month, while a few days later on April 12th, the Greek Easter will be celebrated. During these days, the old city is usually flooded with believers for the touch of the holy fire, which is also transported to Greece. However, this year Easter will be different, as the area remains under a curfew due to the war. With the war continuing, it is not possible for believers to come to the old city as in previous years. A ban on gatherings is enforced with a limit up to 100 people outdoors and up to 50 indoors. According to Mega TV, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Greek Embassy, and the Israeli authorities are in constant communication about the necessary actions. Although it is still considered early, all sides are saying that the holy fire will come to the country in any way, whether by special flight or by other means. Since the start of the war, Israel's airspace has been opening and closing periodically. It is estimated that there will be the necessary gap to make it possible to transport the holy fire to Greece. The holy fire, which magically appears in a cave inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre at noon on Good Saturday, arrives in Athens with a special flight early evening, and the fire is distributed to churches throughout Greece. If transport of the holy fire is not possible, Greeks will celebrate Jesus' resurrection as they did for decades, if not centuries, before the airplane transport, or as diaspora Greeks do, or just as one helps himself with a simple lighter. Now, here's the thing, and I mentioned this in the opening and why this is so concerning for us Orthodox Christians. I'm going to move this story. We're going to progress through this story because there's other things I want to tell you about it. But I told you that there's a rabbi in Israel who claims that the Messiah, their Mashiach, our Antichrist, has come today, Thursday, March 19th, 2026, according to him. I'm not saying this is the official report of the state of Israel, but Elder Ephraim, and we've talked about this in some of the previous eschatological streams, Elder Ephraim made a very interesting comment. He said the year that the holy fire doesn't come is the year of Antichrist. Now, I'm not telling you that the holy fire isn't going to come this year. I have no idea. Is Israel going to allow people into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to receive the mystery, to receive the miracle of holy fire? I don't know. As the article said, that's why I grabbed this one from Greece, because it is a Greek article. They're claiming that Greek authorities are in conversation with the authorities in Israel. But never in the history of our faith has the Church of the Holy Sepulchre been closed. And it's closed right now. And is what's going on right now? I mean, first of all, Iran hasn't even been specifically targeting Jerusalem. It's been leveling Haifa, Tel Aviv, other cities around Israel. But of course, they're not going to try to destroy the holy sites because that would lose the moral high ground that Iran currently has. Some have speculated that closing down these holy sites also could allow Israel to potentially blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So that is a necessary precondition for them to build their third temple and then re-offer their sacrifices as they did in the Old Testament religion. So all these things are connected. And is them shutting this down really due to fears that Iran's going to target believers? And even if that was the case, could they not just warn people, hey, Jerusalem is a very dangerous place to be right now. We recommend nobody being here, but if you want to, you can come and you can be here due to these being religious sites. But why would they just shut them down? Why would they prevent people from being not only at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, but they're shutting down monasteries in the area, evacuating monasteries? What is the point for that? Is it spiritual? Is that they don't want people praying in opposition to what's going on? Do they really care about Christians so much that they don't want them to be injured, even though they spit on them as they go through Jerusalem by the local Jews? What is it? What is the ultimate reason? Is it to get back at all the Christians that are anti-Semitic because they don't support this war or Zionism? Who knows? But here, related to it, I want to show you this video. This kind of goes over this guy right here, which is a rabbi who I said is claiming that the Messiah will come. He will return today. Today is the day. So here's a little video of going over this whole thing.
Listen up. Leading rabbi says the Messiah could arrive Thursday. Cites 500-year-old book naming the Strait of Hormuz as site of final war. The article goes on to say a respected Israeli rabbi is making a striking claim. The Messiah will be announced this Thursday, the first day of the Hebrew month of Nisan and the beginning of the biblical calendar year. It says the timing is tied directly to one of the most strategically volatile waterways on Earth. It says this Thursday and there will be an announcement. And he declared in a lecture that has been circulating widely. The radio will broadcast from Jerusalem and in 5 minutes we will hear a warning. The Messiah has arrived. And it goes on to talk about how the Jewish calendar designates Nisan as the first month, the month of redemption. And then it talks about the Exodus and how the Messiah is predicted to come on the first day of Nisan, this Thursday. But get this, the sages connect this expectation to the destruction of Amalek, the enemy of Israel, what remains of the war against our enemies. We must finish them, particularly the leaders, by this Thursday. Then he says he joked with President Trump, saying you must finish the job by Thursday, which means this week might get interesting with the war.
And so here's the video of the rabbi actually saying all this stuff. Now, is this tied with them shutting down the Church of the Holy Sepulchre? I don't know, but I consider this as one of the biggest insults to Christians. As I said, this is the holiest time of our liturgical year. Lent is our Super Bowl. Pascha is the Super Bowl, right? I mean, not to make that secular analogy, but it's the biggest event. This is a big deal. This is our celebration of our salvation, the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, the God-man. And is it tied with the proclamations of this rabbi that their Messiah is supposed to come today?
That means that on the first day of Nisan, there'll be amazing things that will happen. God willing, this Rosh Chodesh, this Thursday, there'll be news. What'll be the news? Kol Yisrael from Jerusalem. In another 5 minutes, we're going to hear a warning. The Mashiach has arrived. To tell you that there will be special things, amazing things happen. If I were to tell you that there was a sound, a siren that was heard, to tell you to go into the safe room, that's not news. That's already old news. Everybody knows that. Thank you. To make a complete protection around ourselves, that we know how to do. We know how to do. This is to awaken the redemption on the first of the first. To bring the offerings that are in Ezekiel 46 that we bring for the Melech HaMashiach.
We will make it to the return of the Messiah, but this will not happen next Thursday. The lives of nations is always precarious and surrounded with threats. Our survival endurance is a result of alliances that we forge for our existence to be stronger. No doubt we are moving from one battle to another, from the establishment, and with this battle now, with this operation, Israel has become stronger than ever.
Wow, strange. So this war has made Israel stronger than ever. It is an interesting little back and forth disagreement. You have Rabbi Baruch Rosenblum arguing that the Messiah is supposed to come today. Today's the day, March 19th. And then you have Netanyahu saying, well, he's going to come, but not this coming Thursday. Not this next Thursday. Okay. And here you have a very interesting little explanation of what anti-Goyism is. This is by a Jewish man himself, explaining a little bit about what is believed in the Talmud. Check this out.
Hi everyone, my name is Kobe. I was born and raised Jewish in Israel. Today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. Why do we only hear about anti-Semitism but never about anti-Goyism, as taught in the Talmud? So what is anti-Goyism? It's a term that refers to prejudice or hostility by Jews towards non-Jews, often rooted in religious or cultural teachings. In the context of the Talmud, it includes passages that some interpret as promoting the idea that Goyim, non-Jews, are inferior or even enemies. The Talmud, which is our central text, contains passages that some interpret as promoting anti-Goyism. For instance, in the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Avodah Zarah 26b, it said, even the best of the Gentiles should be killed. Another example in Avodah Zarah 36b, it says, the daughters of idolaters, non-Jews, are in a state of nidah, which means filth, from birth. The Sanhedrin 82a, whoever cohabits with a Gentile woman, zealots may strike him. And in the Tosafot commentary on Avodah Zarah 26b, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, the best of the Gentiles kill him. Let's also talk about Jesus in the Talmud. He is referred to as Yeshu and is portrayed as a sorcerer and a deceiver. In Sanhedrin 107b, it is discussed that Jesus was stoned and hanged on the eve of Passover, portraying him as a false prophet and a sorcerer. Now, I've searched and I couldn't find any derogatory references to Jews in the Christians or Muslim texts. It seems that while we have these teachings in the Talmud, other religions don't have similar derogatory views about Jews. And I just want to be clear. Anti-Semitism is real, but so is anti-Goyism. Both are forms of bigotry that need to be addressed. It's time to have an honest conversation about all forms of prejudice, not just ones that suit our Jewish narrative. So could it be that anti-Semitism is, in a way, Jewish karma for being a racist religion? I don't know. I think so. That's a heavy question, but one worth considering. If we acknowledge the derogatory views in our own texts, maybe we can start to understand the cycle of prejudice and work towards breaking it. So next time you hear about anti-Semitism, remember to ask, what about anti-Goyism? Let's talk about both, because true justice means recognizing all forms of discrimination, no matter where they come from. Hi, everyone.
Interesting little commentary by an Israeli Jew who apparently sees things differently now. I'm not going to comment too much. Don't want to violate any TOS. YouTube, that was a Jewish person saying that. That was not me. That was not me. Do not harm me. That was his words. He claimed what was in the Talmud. I did not. I did not. Please be easy on me, YouTube. Austin DeTulio throws in 5. No comment. Thank you very much. Elite Beaver says, pay piggies, rise up. Where are the pay piggies at? What's going on? Oh, my brother Wicked Wally throws in 5. Shout out to Wicked Wally. He says, to test drive the end times, visit your local Nissan dealer. Yeah. Or a little reference there to the Jews believing the Messiah is coming in the month of Nisan. So here's an interesting, given what we just heard about the Talmud, about what it says concerning the non-Jewish faiths, it's what our Israeli Jewish friend just said as anti-Goyism, given the fact that they've shut down the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that all these different things are going on. Listen to this little interesting video about who Rome is, because you'll hear these rabbis keep talking about how they have to defeat Rome. But who is Rome? Who is Rome? And does this have anything to do with our war right now with Iran?
Have you seen this clip of Netanyahu talking about Rome, where he says, we won't lose this time?
We want to know what you're reading now.
It's a book by a historian named Barry Strauss. It's called The Jews Against Rome.
What made you pick it up?
Well, we lost that one. I think we have to win the next one.
A lot of speculation is saying that the United States is the new Rome.
We're Rome, yeah. So historically, there's some religious texts that mention Rome, the powers in the West, and they use Rome. That doesn't mean they mean Rome in Italy. What Rome was at the time, we are today. We're the empire that has the greatest amount of power in the world.
Have you seen this?
Wow, so that's interesting. So if we are Rome, according to contemporary Jewish theology, Netanyahu here is reading a book about how they will never lose to Rome again, as they were previously defeated, referring to the destruction of the Second Temple. Of course, they're trying anxiously to build the Third Temple. It makes you think, is it possible that this war with Iran is actually at the detriment of the United States, which is an intentional objective by the Israel elite, so that we as a nation will go bankrupt, lose any sort of, and I'm not even in favor of us being like the world's police. I hate that. But whatever sort of hegemonic standard that we had, I mean, we've already, the Pentagon's requesting $200 billion. Do you guys remember when we wanted a border wall? And it was like $7.5 billion that they claimed, and we couldn't get it because we didn't have the money. Remember that first Trump administration when we didn't have the money for the border wall? Well, guess how much money we spend a day in this new war with Iran? According to recent estimates, multiple articles I read, $1.8 billion a day. A day. A single day, $1.8 billion. The Pentagon is now requesting an additional $200 billion to continue this war. Doesn't sound like it's stopping anytime soon. I'm not sure how that aids the United States in any way. And again, regarding this anti-Christian sentiment, the Lebanese government reveals that Israel is intentionally bombing historically known for having large Christian communities. Hundreds of Lebanese Christians are being bombed. And I've already mentioned that. They have already bombed the bridges so that the Christians, one, either they can't leave or they can't get back to their homes. The IDF distributed pamphlets, this was a handful of days ago, to these Christians in southern Lebanon, telling them, you better leave your home immediately. We're essentially conducting a counteraction against Hezbollah. We're going to be moving in with soldiers. We're going to be bombarding the place. And for your own safety, you need to leave. And also know, we don't know when you're going to be able to come back. So just like they closed the Church of the Holy Sepulchre indefinitely, they told these Christians in southern Lebanon, we don't know when you'll be able to come back. That's indefinitely, but we'll let you know. Kind of like they let the Palestinians know when they occupied their homes and their land. Seems like a recapitulation of the same pattern there. It's almost like this is the case. Short-term pain, meaning American lives are lost, for long-term gain, meaning the Greater Israel Project, from the Euphrates to the Mediterranean, all the way to the Nile. This is what the war's about. This is really what the war is about. And this is why they don't care at all what happens to Qatar, what happens to the UAE, what happens to Kuwait, what happens to Bahrain. They do not care. In fact, if those countries in the Gulf are less powerful, less financially successful, who do you think that emboldens in the area? Israel. And what did Israel say? So they bomb the southern or the natural gas fields of Iran, which were totally off guard. We're going to get into that here in just a few. Iran then retaliates by hitting the LNG facilities of Qatar, one of the biggest refineries in the world. Apparently have caused about 5 years of damage to it. And what does Netanyahu say today? He says that he envisions a future in which all the oil from the Gulf, whatever, again, they have after this war, will be driven through a pipeline that goes straight through Israel, and from Israel into the Mediterranean nations and into Europe, allowing Israel to control the energy of all of Europe. Interesting. Interesting how that works. Here's Mark Levin saying, if you reject Judaism, it means you're rejecting America. I had no idea. Did you guys know that to be an American means that you support Judaism? That was news to me.
If you reject Judaism and you reject Christianity and you reject the link of the two, you reject the Bible. If you reject Judaism and Christianity and the brotherhood and the sisterhood of the two, not only are you rejecting our founding, you're rejecting our country.
I don't remember ever reading about how Jews founded the United States. Did you guys read that? I remember reading about Freemasons, deists, Enlightenment thinkers, Christians, Puritans, various Protestant sects. I don't remember Judaism being a cornerstone of America. If you guys have sources on that, can you let me know? I don't ever remember reading that. And here's Orthodox Christian John Kiriakou talking about the 187 Mossad agents in the United States that are not declared by the U.S. government.
On my very first day at the CIA, we had a series of briefings. The director came, welcome to the CIA, congratulations. And then the director of personnel, the director of health insurance, the director of whatever, the director of security. So he told us things like, there's a restaurant right down the street, a steakhouse. Don't ever go there, he says, because it's the restaurant that's closest to the CIA. The KGB thinks that we all go there, so they all go there. So the place is only KGB. So we never go inside. I've never been in there still to this day. So he said the Israeli embassy has a representative from Mossad and a representative from Shin Bet, right? And they conduct a liaison with us. But the FBI has identified 187 Mossad agents in the United States, not declared to the US government, spread all around the country to steal our defense secrets. And I raised my hand. I said, why? We give them 99% of our defense secrets. And he said, exactly. They're here to steal the last 1%. And that's what they do. The Israelis are not friends of the United States.
So they're not friends of Rome in their own worldview. I'm beginning to put some puzzle pieces together. Are you guys following? Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? The last few days show what is really going on. Israel didn't start the war to destroy Iran. They started it to destroy the U.S. and Europe. They're real enemies. And here's Netanyahu talking about that beloved little pipeline he believes is going to make Israel even wealthier and more powerful than they are now.
There are oil fields around the world that are burning. Gas prices are going up. The war is popular here in Israel. It's not popular with many Americans. My question was, how do you see this ending? Not why, not even when. What do you imagine the day after?
Well,
So for those who didn't hear, the question was, it was clearly an American saying, what are you going to do about the rising of oil prices and the unpopularity of this war amongst the American population? What are you going to do to end this? Because people are not in support of it. What is the off-ramp? And this is what Netanyahu has to say.
We have achievable goals, and I'm not going to speak about the full battle plans that we have with the United States. We're well coordinated with them. I will say this, that once we achieve our goals, then I have argued, I think and Americans understand this very well because we're real partners. I think that what has to be done is to have alternative routes. Instead of going through the choke points of the Hormuz Straits and the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, in order to have the flow of oil, just have oil pipelines, gas pipelines, going west through the Arabian Peninsula, right up to Israel, right up to our Mediterranean ports, and you've just done away with the choke points for forever. That is definitely possible. So I see that as a real change that will follow this war. But I also see this war ending a lot faster than people think. I think you have to, in war, you have to grit your teeth.
So Trump says it's not a war. Netanyahu says it is a war. And then when asked about what were you going to do to end this war, his response is immediately, well, we're going to build pipelines westward to the Israeli ports. That way we don't have to deal with the Strait of Hormuz. Well, that's interesting. And it doesn't seem like Israel is too interested in even opening up the Straits of Hormuz. Sounds like the more chaos, the better. That's essentially their strategic plan at this point. And then here in the same speech, this is today, by the way, guys. This all happened today. This is Netanyahu declaring that he's alive. All the rumors about him being dead are false. And then he makes this strange comment, again, about Christians. Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. You see, the difference is, BB, we believe Jesus Christ is God incarnate. We believe that Jesus Christ could have stopped Genghis Khan if that was the will of God. But Genghis Khan was a judgment on Europe. That was, in many ways, that's what Islam has been, according to many of the saint elders. Our church elders and saints said that Islam is basically a scourge. It's a judgment by God on Christians. And so here's Netanyahu claiming that Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan or evil. If evil is strong enough, it can overcome Christ.
Also wrote The Lessons of History, very brief, 100-page book, in which he said, well, history proves that, unfortunately and unhappily, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan. Because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. Aggression will overcome moderation. So you have no choice. If you look at the world as it is today, you have to be blind not to see that the democracies led by the United States have to reassert their will to defend themselves and to oppose their enemies in time while there's still time, before the jarring gong of danger wakes them up and wakes them up too late. This is where we are now. The fact that people don't see that, the fact that a lot of the news media are harking on a lot of fake news, but also a lot of short-sightedness, and do not see the historic period and the historic struggle that we are engaged in now, doesn't obviate these truths.
Weird and strange thing to say to your Christian supporters, that Jesus Christ has no advantage over evil if evil is strong enough. Weird. And I just want to highlight, the rest of this thread here is just on the total ineptitude and collapse of Christianity in the West. Here is Reverend Dr. William Danaher calling on Christians to take a self-audit to cleanse the Christian tradition from anti-Semitism, adding, there is a subterranean river of interpretation within the Christian faith that runs in an anti-Semitic direction, meaning those that actually have a true theology in which the church is Israel, we are the fulfillment, we are the chosen, it is not Jews, it is not the Talmudists, that there's this dangerous little thread of anti-Semitism.
Grateful today for the wonderful law enforcement that has been done in the leadership of Sheriff Bouchard. I'm deeply grateful for my brothers and sisters in the Jewish community. We are here to stand with them and to support them with love and fidelity for all that they are and all who they are. I am going to invite Christians as we move into Holy Week and Easter to engage in a self-audit of our scriptures, of our passages that we rely on to tell the story of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, of the practices that we've put in place for generations, to do an audit to make sure that we can cleanse the Christian tradition from anti-Semitism. It has constantly been noted by many scholars over the centuries that there is a subterranean river of interpretation within the Christian faith that runs in an anti-Semitic direction. And as we celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, I want to invite Christians everywhere to engage in that careful audit of our basic beliefs. These beliefs.
Do you think he'll ask the Jewish community to audit themselves regarding the anti-Goyism that we just saw? All the passages in the Talmud, the demoralizing and degrading things they say about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ or our Holy Mother, the Theotokos? What about the ways in which they characterize Goyim women and Goyim men and how they're lesser than the chosen people because they don't have Jewish blood? Do you think he'll mention that as a sort of prejudice that needs self-audited? I don't know about you, but I'm doubting it. I'm doubting it. I wouldn't even be surprised if some strange things emerge on that man's hard drive. 2-week-old baby hospitalized at Wolfson Medical Center with a severe herpes infection after contracting the virus during a Brit Milah Jewish ritual circumcision that involved direct oral suction. That is from the Jerusalem Post. That is the Jerusalem Post. A 2-week-old baby hospitalized with severe herpes infection. Yes, you heard me right, Mojo. He says, excuse me, you heard me right. Jerusalem Post, 2-week-old baby hospitalized at Wolfson Medical Center with severe herpes infection after contracting the virus from a Jewish ritual circumcision that involved direct oral suction from the rabbi. Seems like a strange religious practice. It sounds a bit barbaric, but about as barbaric as what came out of England today. So I don't know if you guys saw, and that's what the next one is, that the House of Lords has voted to decriminalize abortion up to birth. And the Archbishop of Canterbury, a woman who, of course, biblically has no right to be in an authority position among men within the church, who's now the Archbishop of Canterbury, said that legalizing do-it-yourself abortions up to the point of birth is legally, morally, and practically complex. It isn't complex. It's wrong. Killing a 39-week-old baby is morally indefensible. No Christian should find that hard to say. And here she is.
Decriminalisation of abortion is a question of such legal, moral, and practical complexity that I do believe it cannot be properly addressed in an amendment hastily added to another bill. Consideration of any alteration to the abortion laws needs public consultations and robust parliamentary processes to ensure that every aspect of this debate is carefully considered and scrutinised.
So the Archbishop of Canterbury cannot bring herself to condemn do-it-yourself abortions all the way up to the point of birth. So we're talking about a full-fledged baby, 3rd trimester, getting ready to be born the next day. In England now, due to the vote by the House of Lords, you can kill that baby. You can kill that baby in England now.
My lords, there have voted contents 148, not contents 185, so the not contents have it.
Absolutely evil. And wait till you see the next thing. So, quote from George Orwell, "The past was erased. The erasure was forgotten. The lie became the truth." Here in Wales, so these are actual, indigenous Celtic people to the British Isles, statues of old white men like the Duke of Wellington and Admiral Lord Nelson could be destroyed because they may be offensive to the diverse modern public. Welsh government advises. Now, here's what I wanted to get at after what I was saying is wait till you see what's going on. So they vote for abortion all the way up to birth. And this came out. This was posted today. Again, the caption here is absolutely demonic. I couldn't believe this was real, but it is. And it's an article from the Telegraph, stating aborted babies incinerated to heat UK hospitals. Let me read that again to you guys. Aborted babies, which again they just legalized all the way up to the point of birth, were incinerated to heat UK hospitals. Is that not the sickest thing you can imagine? Yeah. No, I agree. There is a very deep spiritual problem going on in England. That's why they're in the position they are. How are people okay with that? That is unbelievable. That is... Funky Monkey says, sir, they prefer the phrase aborted fetuses. Thank you, Funky Monkey. I mean, I'm glad you brought some levity to the situation, some humor, because what is going on in England? What is going on? And what is going on with even their celebration of St. Patrick's Day? Did you see this? They chose the snakes over the saints. So the Dublin City Council in Ireland, remember, March 17th, 2 days ago, it was St. Patrick's Day. We did a stream early in the morning to commemorate my patron saint for my namesake and one of the greatest saints of all time. As I talked about in that stream, St. Patrick, according to the Orthodox Church, had the most successful missionary event in church history. That by the time he arrived in Ireland to the time that he reposed, no one had converted more people without violence, without martyrdom, or even killing the Celtic people who they're trying to convert. It was the most successful missionary effort in church history. Well, what does Ireland do to celebrate? And let me just say, not Ireland, but the Dublin City Council. They have a serpent on the flag of the rainbow colors. Now, why is that significant? Because who drove out the snakes? Now, obviously, there are no snakes in Ireland, right? These are islands. So there was no snakes in the first place. The idea of St. Patrick driving out the snakes has to do with the demons, right? The demonic influences, the pagan practices, the human sacrifice, the druidic rituals, the magic, the witchcraft, the sorcery. That's what the snakes represent. What does the Dublin City Council do? In celebration of St. Patrick, they put gay snakes on the flag. They put gay snakes on the flag, mocking the liberator and the enlightener of their own country. I mean, can you... These people are so demonically possessed, which, again, St. Patrick's Day around the world is really just a secular holiday celebrating Irish culture. They can't even put St. Patrick or anything Christian related on it. They put a freaking gay snake. They put a gay snake on the flag. That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable. Now, of course, Dublin and their city council, but many of the Irish politicians are doing everything they can to bring more immigrants to Ireland. I mean, they're trying to ethnically cleanse the Irish, as they're doing in every Western nation right now. But I found this personally offensive. Someone who absolutely adores St. Patrick, is my patron saint. Here's my icon. I couldn't believe that the Dublin City Council couldn't even venerate St. Patrick in a respectful way. Whether you're Christian or not, you can't even show some respect to St. Patrick of Ireland. And I'm going to be following up on this because we have a sponsored stream. Shout out to Blazo if he's watching. He's one of my buddies. He sponsored a stream, which I'm going to be diving into the whole Kosovo situation and Bill Clinton in the 1990s. But This is like serious. Croatia, Albania, Kosovo preparing to attack Serbia, according to President Vučić. Says they're waiting for a big conflict to break out between Europe and Russia in the Middle East. They're waiting for chaos in the world to give them an opportunity. And this is stated by multiple other sources. Serbia prepares for war. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić stated that Croatia, Albania, and Kosovo are allegedly preparing to attack Serbia. According to him, these countries are waiting for an escalation of the conflict between Russia and Europe and hope that global chaos in the war in the Middle East will provide them an opportunity to act. Vučić also confirmed that Serbia possesses hypersonic ballistic missiles and emphasized that the country has no intention of joining NATO. So we're going to potentially see more Orthodox Christians perish because the Western powers that be are utilizing Croatia, Albania, and Kosovo to potentially declare war on Serbia. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. All right. We're okay. We're done with that section as well. We're going to be diving now straight into the Iran war and some of the more hot topics. So smash that like, guys. Let me just double check and catch up with it. Oh, we reached the goal. Shout out to everyone who helped me reach the goal. We just smashed the goal of 30 super chats. Thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate all the support, guys. Susan Griffith threw in 5, no comment. Thank you very much, Suzanne. Melly throws in 2, no comment, with another $2 that says, why is Israel not focusing on the Strait of Hormuz? Because they don't care if the Strait of Hormuz is open. They have no interest in opening the strait. The more chaos in the Middle East, it only benefits Israel. That's why Netanyahu said this is going incredibly well for us. We're in a great position right now. That's why he said that. Melly also said he is talking about himself. He thinks he can overcome Christ. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if it's not obvious yet that this whole thing is led by a spirit of Antichrist and that Antichrist is a spirit that is running through the state of Israel, them shutting down the church, them spitting on Christians, him denouncing Christ as a force that can stop evil, that if you just have strong a will enough, if you're just evil enough, that Jesus Christ can't help you. I mean, this stuff is explicitly anti-Christian. And then they're talking about the Messiah coming today. KLW throws in 10, says, for the goal. Thank you so much, KLW. Really appreciate all the support, my man. And Austin DeTulio throws in 5. No, Austin, thank you so much, my brother. And KLW throws in another 10, says, we all need to repent harder. Amen to that. And that's why we're in Lent right now. That's what Lent is. Lent is a season of dying to ourselves, to our desires, to our passions, so that we can resurrect with Christ on Pascha. So if you're struggling right now with spiritual temptations, if you're just struggling, if you're in the desert right now spiritually, this Lent is the opportunity to reset your life. That's what we're doing right now. You realign your desires, you participate in the fast, you do your prayers, you go to services, and you realign your will with Christ so that when he resurrects, you resurrect with him. To the chickens, throws in 2, says, of their own country, for probably all of minutes. And the salty throws in 10, says, for the goal. Well, thank you very much, the salty. I do appreciate it. Wow, so thank you guys so much for helping me reach the goal. EO Short throws in 5 over on Streamlabs and says, I've been appreciating your show for years, brother. God bless your work. Well, thank you very much, EO Shorts. I do appreciate it. Thank you for that. And wow, I really, really am thankful, guys, for helping me reach my goal. You guys have been so generous the last few streams. I really appreciate it. Really do. All right. So let's bring up our most thorough tab section. People always get on me, dude, you got to close all the tabs. Well, how the heck am I supposed to do these shows? How do I do a drama alert when, without all these tabs? So people got annoyed with all my tabs. You're just going to have to deal with it. So before we even get into everything, I want to show you guys a great AI video. So, I've been showing you some of these AI videos lately. Some have been really good. This is another really good one. And I want to show you, it very much encapsulate the state of the world right now and much of what we're seeing in a sort of humorous but also ominous way. But it's a great use of AI. So I'm going to play this whole video for you guys, and then we'll start diving into details regarding the war. And then it reverts back to where it starts. So it insinuates that Jared Kushner's in line. So anybody who watches this in the future on the podcast, you might want to just skip that unless you like Leonard Cohen. That is the song Everybody Knows by Leonard Cohen. People are asking, what's the song? What it is, the video, it's a 5-minute video basically giving AI depiction of all the major conspiracies that we all know. And that's what the point of the song is. Everybody knows. And then it shows over and over and over and over again all these different conspiracies, from Eyes Wide Shut, salacious satanic parties, to 9/11, to the war in Iran, to, you know, everything that's Charlie Kirk, everything that's been going on, Erica Kirk, all that stuff is mentioned. So I thought it was a nice little AI video. I thought it was interesting nonetheless. So we'll use that to sort of set the stage as we get into our topic now. South Pars. So this is the major update regarding the war in Iran, the war with Iran. What is it? It all has to do with yesterday. So they've continuing to shell each other. And in fact, Iran's been incredibly successful with some of their cluster bombs, their cluster munitions that have been able to attack various cities in Israel. And essentially, that's kind of been where it's at. So it's been Israel basically bombing southern Lebanon and bombing Iran, along with the United States bombing Iran, Trump freaking out on how we can get the Straits of Hormuz open. And so Israel, according to Trump, which I'm going to show you in just a second, bombed the South Pars oil field, which is the largest natural gas field in the world. It's not just in southern Lebanon, as this. I looked it up for today. It's the largest natural gas field in the world. The reservoir is like the size of Qatar, and it lit up parts in massive flames. You can see this in this video here. Well, everybody was like, oh my God, this is a huge escalation in the war, because now that's going to lower the amount of output of natural gas whenever this war ends, which is going to cause a larger energy crisis around the world. And Trump immediately put out this post. Okay, never mind. This is an article. It's the next one. So after Iran escalates attacks on Gulf energy sites, Israel says it will stop striking its gas field. Okay, so why does Israel say that they'll stop? Because the United States freaked out. So where is, what the heck? There it is. So Trump, immediately after the response by Iran, so Israel bombs the South Pars natural gas field in southern Iran, the largest one in the world. And according to Israeli officials and representatives of the Trump administration, the U.S. both knew about the strikes and approved the strikes, and they claim that Trump knew about it ahead of time. Well, as soon as that happened, and then Iran immediately responded by 2 ballistic missiles hitting the LNG oil refinery in Qatar, Trump then responds with this. Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack. So who's lying? Trump, Israel, or the neocons in the Trump administration? We don't know exactly. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that it was going to happen. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this, or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. No more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case Qatar, in which instances the United States of America, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. I do not want to authorize this level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications that it will have on the future of Iran. But if Qatar's LNG is attacked, I will not hesitate to do so. Thank you for your attention on this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Now, why is this of interest? Because somebody's lying. We've been told, as we've already talked about throughout this stream and throughout all the other streams, is that Israel has been pulling us into this conflict, correct? Well, according to Trump, now that they just escalated, because what Israel did just jeopardized all of the energetic output for the global economy. And luckily they got a portion of it, but imagine they actually took out the whole South Pars natural gas field. Major setback to the global economy. As I said, Israel doesn't mind. All destruction in the Middle East benefits them. This is the first time I have seen of Trump calling out Israel. But notice he does it at the beginning, and then he makes the claim in all caps, no more attacks will be made by Israel. But then he threatens Iran. He threatens Iran for naturally retaliating to something, according to Trump, was never supposed to happen. That natural gas field was never supposed to be attacked. Well, it was. And Iran then immediately attacks Qatar. And according to what I was reading, Qatar was saying that the damage caused to the LNG refinery could be at least 5 years to fully repair. And it cost them $70 billion to build. $70 billion, about $10 billion less than Mark Zuckerberg just lost on Meta's VR. But that is significant. And it makes you wonder, given the Joe Kent stuff, getting all this criticism that's being leveled at Israel, specifically regards to their role in getting us involved in this conflict. And then you have Joe Kent speculating about potential connections back to Israel regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination. You got him talking about being blocked in regards to Thomas Crooks, the supposed assassin that was hired or out of his own volition, tried to kill Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. All of which the FBI and the DOJ were blocking Joe Kent and the National Counterterrorist Center from investigating. Very strange. Very strange. But it almost feels like there can only be three options here. Trump is lying and knew all about it the whole time. That is potential. This post right here could be a total fabrication and lie because he saw the response and he saw what was going to continue to happen if Israel continued and freaked out and then created this story. That's possible. Another possible one is that Israel is lying and that the U.S. actually had no idea about it. That's also possible. We know that, Israel's not shy about putting out false narratives to get whatever it is that they want. Or number three, and this is what I think is probably most likely. This is my personal opinion. This is total speculation, just my thoughts. Is that the Trump administration absolutely knew this was going to happen, and all the neocons that Trump has hired, and let's just face it, a vast number of advisors surrounding Trump right now are all either neocon Zionist or they're Jewish Zionist. And it is possible, in my opinion, that Trump is in a sense in a bubble right now. And it would make sense on some of his reactions, some of the things that he said. He's been really incoherent. Some people are questioning whether he has dementia, whether he's having a medical crisis. That's been speculated. But what seems more plausible to me is, as we already know from last week's discussion, that Jared Kushner is actually pulling many of the levers behind the scenes regarding the Trump administration, is that it's very possible that actors in the Trump administration knew that this attack was going to happen. They okayed it, but Trump wasn't made aware of it. And I can imagine a situation of where we're at right now regarding this war in which Trump has no hands on any levers. He's basically just a public mouthpiece. And he has all his little minions around him doing all the work. And because they're all in lockstep with Israel, they're going to okay and go forward with anything that they request, including attacking natural gas fields that could put a massive hamper on the global economy, which Trump is trying to avoid. That's why he encouraged India to buy oil from Russia, in which they're making a killing now. $153 million more a day is what Russia reported. So who is it? What is the story? I'm curious what you guys actually believe. So Iranian attacks have damaged about 17% of Qatar's LNG production capacity, with disruptions expected to last 3 to 5 years. Qatar is one of the world's top LNG exporters, supplying key markets across Europe and Asia. So who does this hurt the most? Europe. Is Europe Rome, as we talked about in some of contemporary Jewish minds, that for the Mashiach to come, for the ascendancy of Israel, and the global ruling of the chosen people, the implementation of Noahide laws, that destroying America and Europe is incredibly beneficial. In fact, it's consistent with their historical animosity towards Rome. And that's why we are the new Rome. It's interesting. Could that be it? Could it be that Israel's doing things, whether it's beneficial for the United States or not, just because it'll cause more chaos? And so Iran then responded. This was yesterday. No, this was today. And they hit with a ballistic missile the Israeli refinery in Haifa. So that was a major retaliation. And Iran was avoiding hitting their own Israeli refineries or anything related as long as they didn't hit theirs, which that is now off. And so very interesting. Again, remember how we always say every accusation is an admission? It's an admission of guilt. Listen, look at what Donald Trump said. This was 6 days ago about Iran. And tell me if it doesn't sound eerily similar to Israel. He says Iran had plans of taking over the entire Middle East. I don't remember hearing that. I have heard of the Greater Israel Project. Have you guys? And completely obliterating Israel. Well, replace Israel with Iran. Just like Iran itself, those plans are now dead. President Donald J. Trump. It sounds like what he's claiming Iran wants is exactly what Israel actually wants. And so here, and this is where Trump is getting his theology. Remember we talked about Carrie Prejean, the Catholic Miss California candidate that got kicked off the Religious Freedom Committee by Dan Patrick of Texas and Paula White. And she talked about how Paula White was this conniving, backstabbing, power-hungry, money-hungry woman that was doing everything she could to prevent any inkling of criticism of Israel. Because what we now know is that the whole Religious Freedom Committee, the point of it was to get people of all faiths to support Israel's war with Iran, of which America is involved in. But I just want you to see what this woman does. This is the personal pastor of Donald Trump. Okay, so she speaks in tongues, she speaks in gibberish, and she's she's been an adulteress like 2 or 3 times. She's on like her 3rd or 4th marriage. And listen to her ask for money. I mean, it's so repulsive. It's incredible.
Anointing of release right now. I want $100,000 to come in. I want $100,000. There are 10 people that could give $10,000. There's 100 people that could give $1,000. Get a check, make it payable to Paula White Ministry. There are people that are watching right now. If you say, I don't have it, give $100. Bring up a sacrificial seed. This isn't for me. This is about kids that will die.
I don't know if you guys can hear that. The audio is really low. But she's telling people, send in $100, send in $100,000. If you can't afford $100,000, send in $1,000. If you can't afford $1,000, you got to send in at least $100. Make it out to Paula White Ministries. Paula White Ministries. This isn't just you giving to our ministry. This is about you saving children from death. This is about you helping children. This is about you receiving your blessings. That's what she's saying.
Without you being obedient. This is about kids who are going to be minstrels and instruments and warriors and mighty for God. This is about kids who are going to make a difference. I'm not going to take everybody's blessing. Come on. I'm going to tell you, get a seed of sacrifice. Get in the arena. Get in the arena. I need you to stand. There's only 3 envelopes. I'm not moving. I'm not going to lay hands on people till you're obedient. Get out of your seat. Come on. And
Did you hear her? So now she's saying, again, the people who go to these congregations, I mean, they have to be half retarded. I don't know. First of all, how do you be a man? How can you be a heterosexual man and go to church and see this lady on stage and be like, wow, that's the word of God. That's the gospel. How can any heterosexual man go and sit in this congregation? I don't even understand. But what she just said is, and I'm not going to take all your blessings. You gotta do an act of self-sacrifice. Send in your money now. And then she says, I'm not even going to lay on hands and heal you until you send in your money. Send in your blessings. Do an act of wait. So you're claiming you can heal people, but you won't even heal people until they send you money? I didn't read that in the gospel.
And come bring up a seed. Come bring up a seed. Come bring up a seed. Eddie, don't worry. You're going to get it anyway. You're going to get it with or without the people's obedience. But I got to break some ground up in this place. You need a wedding dress. You need some things, but you're struggling all the time financially. That's not the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is not every wish and every want, but it is provision for the vision. The kingdom of God is there is no lack in Christ. He will...
The kingdom of God means that you have as much money as you want, according to her. The kingdom of God means that you you lie to people, you connive, you backstab, and you launder money through your ministry to make yourself wealthy, apparently. So it's typical prosperity gospel BS. That is Donald Trump's personal pastor, people. This woman is his personal pastor. There's nothing gospel about it. It's the most evil and disgusting things. And she is currently the face of the Christian, what is it? I forget what official office. He's like the Office of Christian Ministries of the United States of America or something. She's the head of it. She's the leader. She's the spokesperson for Christianity in America. And no surprise, she's a massive Zionist. Massive Zionist. Here, you guys got to see this. So, okay. So Glenn Beck, he's a Mormon. Glenn Beck is Mormon. He's a massive Zionist as well, right? And he's been very critical of anybody who's not supporting, the war. I played videos, I don't even know if it was the last drama alert or the one before it, about Glenn Beck saying he had a dream. He had a dream, and God told him that the point of his life is to work on behalf of the Jewish people. Kind of very similar, reminiscent of Ted Cruz's interview with Tucker Carlson. Remember that? So Joe Kent resigns, blames Israel. This is Israel's war. That's what most of us believe anyways. And then Israel bombs South Par's natural oil gas field. And what happens? They respond. Qatar. Now we're in a deeper energy crisis than we were before. Here's Glenn Beck's words of wisdom. For Glenn Beck, how do you get around this? You're a massive shill for Israel. You're getting paid your $7,000 a post. And yet you also need to be critical because you're realizing that the president himself posted a critical comment about Israel. How do you defend both of them? Here's his attempt.
Okay, I'm going to get into some of the things that happened, but did you see how Donald Trump yesterday came out and he tweeted, "Stop it, Israel. Bad Israel, stop. Israel is being reckless right now." The oil refineries that they were hitting, the oil structure that they're hitting, that's not helpful, Israel. We said that last week. Why are they doing that? As I was thinking this through yesterday, it occurred to me, and I went and I did some homework. Has this ever happened in history before? And yes, it has. And so I want to present a theory, because the story being told to you right now is really neat. It's really simple. It has a villain and a victim, a manipulator and a man who is supposedly led.
See, notice how remember Dan Bongino, John Bolton, Ben Shapiro. What's their response to the idea that Israel got us into the war? Oh, you think Donald Trump's just an idiot? You think Donald Trump's just an idiot? It's like, no, we think he's a Zionist. No, we think that Ivanka being married to Jared Kushner actually influences his decisions. We think that Donald Trump Jr. being engaged to an Israeli woman actually probably influences their decisions. We think that the money that has been loaned to Trump throughout his entire career to build the Trump empire was Jewish money. We think that he has a special relationship with the Jewish people, and that's why he has hired them and hired Zionists and neocons, and they essentially put him in a cocoon of lies. And that's why we've contributed to the destruction of Iran, and that's why we participate in this war. And that's why, potentially, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, because him leading TPUSA, the largest youth organization, conservative youth organization in the country, according to Joe Kent, months before he was assassinated, was in the West Wing, had a conversation with Donald Trump in which he pleaded to Donald Trump to not go to war with Iran. And then we have private messages insinuating that Charlie Kirk was saying that Israel was doing everything to manipulate Trump and the people around him to influence war with Iran. Okay, so they don't address any of that stuff. What do? They just claim that you either think that Israel's super bad or you think Trump's super dumb. No, I think Israel is conniving and using its mechanisms of power to influence the United States, and I think Trump is already sympathetic to them. And because of all the money he was donating, notice how they don't talk about Miriam Adelson. They don't talk about the hundreds of millions of dollars that they've given Donald Trump for re-election, for his political efforts. That's never mentioned, right? We just have to assume you either think Bibi's the devil or you think Trump's an idiot. There's a lot of space in between here.
It says one leader whispered into the other, lies. And the other leader was duped into it. Oh my gosh, I've got to follow. History almost never works that way. Nations don't drift into wars of this scale because somebody whispered a lie alone.
Have you heard anybody who's critical of this war or Israel say that Bibi Netanyahu whispered into the ears of Donald Trump and that's why we're in the war? Of course not. It's such a dumb, non-argument response. This is all they have. Again, Glenn Beck's between a rock and a hard place here. He has to defend Trump, and he's also a massive Zionist who claims that God told him the purpose of his life is to defend Jewish people. Where's Glenn going to go with this?
Most times, if not almost all times, it's because pressure has been building, sometimes for years, sometimes for generations, until the moment arrives when someone decides the cost of waiting is greater than the cost of acting.
Could it be that the pressure building was actually the Israeli advocacy for war, and that Trump capitulated to their demands because of the money that he's been given through donations and the political lobbies?
And to understand this, you have to begin where the pressure is the greatest. Where is the pressure greatest in the world when it comes to Iran? Some will say
Israel.
Well, it's Iran because they're being bombed. No, Israel. Israel looks at Iran differently than the West does.
Oh, thank you.
The West is, Iran is a policy problem. Israel sees Iran as a deadline. I wrote a chalkboard today and just divvied it up into three: Iran, Israel, and the U.S.
Oh, thank God Glenn Beck brought back his chalkboard. Remember that TV show he had? I remember I was in undergrad. So this had to have been like 2009, 2010. Remember that show he had on Fox News where he'd have the whiteboard or the chalkboard and he would write for all the boomers and act like he was really spilling the tea and giving them the truth about the workings of the world. Remember that?
We're big Satan, but who do they promise to kill first? Little Satan, right?
Oh, and Glenn, who is it do they hate? I mean, Iran's made this statement so many times. They do not hate the American citizens. Iran has made this point over and over. They refer to America as the big Satan because Israel manipulates and controls the United States government. Iran has stated that multiple times, that they know that the majority of Americans are actually in opposition to the machinations of the U.S. government. They say the reason why the U.S. government does things in opposition to the people of America is because it's actually led by Israel. That's why they hate the United States.
Right? Little Satan. That's Israel. We're big Satan. They have said over and over, the Israelis, the Jews will burn in the fires of the Islamic fury. And as they're saying that, they're building nukes. They have 400 to 600 kilograms. That's about 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium. And they're 12ers. You'll really understand this if you've been following it all on the program. This is what the Iranians believe. The Iranian regime has spent decades funding proxies, building capability, repeatedly, openly, consistently saying and acting in the way that follow their words that Israel will cease to exist, that the Jews will die. Now,
but even them, Iran is about ending the state of Israel. Iran is not about the genocide of all Jews. They claim that the state of Israel is a false state due to the pretenses in which it allowed the occupation of the Palestinian people, and that it's sort of a tumor in the Middle East that continues to grow, continues to get larger. Now, Glenn Beck's going to go on to say Israel's acting very naughty, they're acting bad, they're going too far, but it's because Israel understands the theology of Iran, and Iran is an existential threat to Israel, and so they're acting in maybe irrational ways that the America doesn't know. But he says, I don't know why Israel's going so far. Dude, have you not heard of the Greater Israel Project? Have you not been following what Jews actually believe, Glenn? Like, what are we... You don't know why Israel's causing mass chaos? You don't know why Israel's doing things against the request of the United States? Come on, bro. So it's just total nonsense. These people live in a delusion. Glenn Beck being a prime example of where he has to say, I don't know why Israel's doing this, but Israel's doing it because the 12ers in Iran, that they're an existential threat to Israel. But, I mean, thank God we have Trump, and you know, Trump's not manipulated by Israel, and they're just going a little too far, but I don't know why they're doing it. Thanks for the insight, Glenn. Here, breaking, America's Arab allies are now fuming after the attack on Qatar that they do not seem to have any influence with the Trump administration despite, quote, heavy investments of time and money. That's per the Wall Street Journal. Arab Gulf countries recently committed to investing nearly $4 trillion in the United States. And then once they get bombed, Trump moves all the defense equipment to protect Israel. This was, if true, this is major news. So we don't have confirmation because the United States has not verified this, but Iran has claimed and has released this video reportedly showing one of its air defense systems successfully hitting an American F-35 fighter jet, which was forced to make an emergency landing. Now, the United States has not stated whether Iran attacked, but remember, we just talked about the USS Gerald Ford. The USS Gerald Ford was on fire, supposedly and reportedly had to stop at Cyprus to deal with all the damage, and that 200 sailors were injured due to smoke inhalation. Iran claims that they struck the USS Gerald Ford. The United States claimed that the fire emerged out of the laundry machines on the ship. So again, who's lying and who's telling the truth? We don't know, as the case with much of this war. We just don't know. I would assume it would make sense that Iran was able to make a strike on the USS Gerald Ford and that the United States would feel embarrassed to say that Iran is winning in the fight. And so that they claim that a laundry machine caused some type of fire on the ship. I don't know. I suppose that the U.S. is lying about it, but I don't know for sure. And this was released today by Iran, claiming that they shot down an F-35, which again is a major success for them. And this is how we're becoming, or it is already becoming, a world war. I've already said that it is a world war, but UK, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Japan just issued a joint statement on the Strait of Hormuz, their commitment, readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts. So Trump has been pleading and begging with other nations to sort of help the United States with opening the Straits of Hormuz, of which they all said no. And then, as I said, the president of Japan came to the White House today, and we don't actually know what was negotiated, but today it emerged that the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Netherlands, all of which declined the United States and Japan, are now vowing to aid the United States in opening the strait. So what happens if a German sub or a German ship gets hit by Iran? What happens if Japan, one of their ships, gets struck and it gets sunk? Sounds like we're in a world war. Sounds like we're already in one. Massive convoy of trucks. This was also breaking news today. Left Tajikistan for Iran. Official description is that these trucks are for humanitarian aid. So you can see hundreds of semi-trucks coming from Tajikistan. What's being alleged by Israel and the United States is that what is inside all these semi-trucks are drones. So Iran has had a drone manufacturing facility in Tajikistan for 4 years. It's believed that they're getting a massive shipment of drones potentially. You see all the trucks with Iranian flags on them. They're claiming it's humanitarian aid, but could be a restocking of drones, which have been incredibly successful during this war. This was a statement that came out today. Remember, Qatar was hit. Their LNG facility, this is a massive, massive deal. Qatar's prime minister said, this war needs to stop immediately. Everyone knows who the main beneficiary of this war is. And then he said, he told the world, this war serves someone's interest. And that someone is not in Tehran, it's not in Washington, and it's not in Doha. It's in Tel Aviv. Now, many people were highlighting that he's standing in front of a flag, but it looks like he almost has a Ku Klux Klan hat on. It looks like he has a white cone hat. He doesn't. He's standing in front of the Qatari flag.
Say that this war needs to stop immediately. The aggression needs to stop immediately, because everyone knows who is the big beneficiary of this war and dragging the whole region into this conflict. And unfortunately, what's taking place now, it's a serve for those agendas. Thank you very much.
So Qatar's come straight out and blamed Israel. But remember, it's anti-Semitic, according to Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and Dan Bongino and John Bolton and Greenblatt of the ADL. You cannot say that Israel is responsible for this war. You know, according to Rabbi Yehuda, they're soon going to make sure that you can't work in the United States because you're deemed to be an anti-Semite. Lebanese surgeon, so this is, again, the ongoing Israeli attacks on Lebanon, which have predominantly affected Christians. One American, a Lebanese American, he's a surgeon who's now a U.S. citizen and a professor of surgery at Harvard Medical School, saw his home in Beirut destroyed by an Israeli airstrike. He said, I paid for 7 years to own a small apartment in downtown Beirut for my 3 kids to enjoy summers there. Today, Israel reduced my dream home to rubble with American weapons paid by my taxes. Now, Israel destroyed an entire apartment building. They claimed Hezbollah was in it. But there was multiple families that had nothing to do with Hezbollah. And what did Israel do? They just destroyed, they just took out the base of the entire building. Look at that. People were in there. No care in the world. No care in the world by the Israelis. Unbelievable. Breaking, this was yesterday, the World Health Organization, which I am not fond of in any form or fashion, is preparing for a potential nuclear emergency if the conflict involving Iran continues to escalate. So, what's been the rumor is that one of the reasons why Israel would love for this war to get out of hand is so that they could implement one of their nukes, which they don't have, right? You know, Israel, we know that they have nuclear weapons. This is what the conspiracy about JFK's assassination is really about. JFK was avid that Israel was not to have nuclear weapons because it would cause havoc in the Middle East, because they would probably utilize them. Well, Israel has a non-official nuclear program. We have no idea. It's basically one of the only countries in the world where they do not have investigators to actually look over their nuclear stockpile, make sure they're storing things correctly, you know, what they do for all the other nations. But we know for a fact that they have nukes. We know for a fact that they would love to use one on Iran, and many people are speculating that that is one of the ultimate goals. Could the World Health Organization actually say something true for the first time and be actually warning people that a nuclear emergency may be on its way? And then here's a lovely, lovely little thing from Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo says, we Jews, though technically he's not Jewish, he's just a Zionist, need to make sure the story is written properly so that when the history books write this, they won't write about the victims of Gaza. Listen to this. This is horrendous.
The next generation of young people won't remember October 7th in the same way. That's true in Israel and in America and broadly in the world. And we need to make sure two things. One, it's not that we don't forget. We need to make sure that the story is told properly so that when the history books write this, they don't write about the victims of Gaza, right? They can't. The history, and it's
gets an applause for that. Gets an applause for that. Talking about how once this is all over and they rewrite the history books, probably the ones that Ghislaine Maxwell's dad wrote. Robert Maxwell, you know, he actually owned a textbook company that a lot of people's, through their like high school, middle school education was actually, those textbooks came from a company owned by Robert Maxwell. That he wants to make sure that when they rewrite history, there'll be no mentioning of the Gazans. You know, the genocide, the millions of people they've killed throughout their occupation.
I should be a little more precise. There were victims in Gaza, right? It's true. There are civilian casualties in every war that's ever been fought. But the victims were the people of the nation state of Israel. The aggressor was the Iranian regime in the proxy of Hamas. And we need to make sure that the history books reflect that. And that requires each of us every day to talk about it in real time with our children, with our grandchildren, about it in a way that is serious and thoughtful and complete and moral. The next
moral, right after he said, but they're going to rewrite the history books and make sure the Gazans are never mentioned in it. And he's talking about being moral. Iranian parliament speaker says America sacrifices everyone for Israel and does not care about anyone but Israel. Can't argue with that. Can't argue with that. Has the Trump administration given us a reason for this war yet? No, they have not. I'll answer the question for you. They have not. It began with nuclear weapons. Well, they never had a nuclear weapon. Our own intelligence said they didn't have a nuclear weapon. Then Israel moved the line to nuclear enrichment. Well, they said, we can't get rid of nuclear enrichment. We use nuclear energy. Well, they said, nope, nuclear enrichment, that's the line. It's nuclear enrichment. So then there was negotiations, apparently potential positive negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. And then it got moved to ballistic missiles. Now Iran can't have ballistic missiles. And then Trump, once the war started, well, it's about destroying their military. Have we destroyed their military? We're told we destroyed their Air Force. We're told we destroyed their Navy. We're told that we've already won the war. And yet he's literally complaining to the rest of the world that we can't open the Straits of Hormuz and that he's going to leave NATO, which I'm fine with. We need to leave NATO. I'm in favor of that, but he threatened NATO nations that the United States is going to leave unless they help with the Straits of Hormuz. I don't know if that was the catalyst for them to eventually join this conflict or not, but the Iran parliament speaker is not lying. He's not lying. That's exactly how I feel. And that's where, I mean, look at all the anti-Semitic laws that are being passed. Look at the BDS laws that are being passed. I mean, we are in an occupied nation. The fact that this is being considered anti-Semitic to say when the evidence is so in our face, it's so in our face. Remember when Mark Levin said that there's no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein worked with Israel, that he was Russian? And then Ben Shapiro the next day said that Jeffrey Epstein was working for the Russians in North Korea. North Korea. Ben Shapiro. We have Ehud Barak going to Jeffrey Epstein's place more times than we can count, going to Epstein Island, his $1 million palace in Manhattan, Palm Beach. Ehud Barak was to all those places, but Ben Shapiro says it's actually North Korea. North Korea. Okay, who knew that Kim Jong-un loved the pedos? Okay, this is pretty disturbing. So this was this happened yesterday, but the story got to the United States today. There's a British journalist, Steve Sweeney, and he's been very critical of Israel. And lately, where he set up shop is in southern Lebanon. And he recently just did a report the day before talking about how Israel is targeting Christian communities in southern Lebanon explicitly. So he made that report. What happens next? I'll show you. Israel tries to bomb him while he's presenting the news in southern Lebanon. Again, he has a press vest on. Clearly he's press. Watch. Israel tries to drop a bomb on top of him.
Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and a minute. Fucking hell. Fuck. Where?
So this was his piece of news the day before, talking about the Christian communities and Christian districts in Lebanon.
Well, we're now here in Nabatea City. We're in a Christian district of the city. This is an area north of the Litani River, but is now included in that exclusion zone, the IDF.
So you see the Litani River here and the Zorani River. These are the sections that Israel is essentially trying to annex. So their goal is to take Lebanon all the way up to these rivers. That is their stated goal. So you can see where a section of northern Israel is to the east of that Lebanese section under the Litani River. They want all of that. And guess who predominantly lives in that area? Christians.
Having extended that evacuation order to all areas north of the Zorani River. On Friday night and in the early hours of Saturday morning, there have been a number of massacres. One took place here. 7 people were killed, 7 members of one family, 2 parents, their 4 children, and a passerby. Now, the scale of the destruction is incredible. There was a very powerful munition used to strike the civilian building where the people were killed. There were at least 5 people wounded. Now, as you can see behind me, this is a school. This is a Catholic school, and if we can see just inside here, you can see the impact from where one of the missiles struck this area. Now, this clearly isn't a military target. This is a civilian building. This is an educational building, and this is part of that civilian infrastructure which Israel is now increasingly targeting. Of course.
So Israel. Again, thank you for Steve Sweeney being in southern Lebanon, actually reporting this to the world. Israel is targeting Catholic schools. Catholic schools with ballistic missiles in southern Lebanon. Why would they do that? If the whole point is to fight Hezbollah, why would you blow up a Catholic school? Well, because the point is to eradicate everything that is in that area because it's going to be rebuilt by the Jews.
Of course, it goes without saying that targeting civilian infrastructure is a war crime. Now, the statistics, well, they make for very grim reading. Now, according to the latest statistics from the Lebanese Health Ministry, more than 100 children have been killed and around as part of the 800 people that have been killed since the Israeli escalation on March the 2nd. Now, there are talks that there could be some kind of negotiations. Israel has apparently rebuffed the approach made by the Lebanese government, although there are unverified reports that a negotiating team is being gathered for talks in Cyprus, which is just across the water. Now, again, these talks will be taking place between representatives of the Lebanese government, representatives of the Israeli government. However, Hezbollah, which is leading the resistance, engaged in fierce battle with the Israeli Defense Force, particularly around the border town of Khiam, has said that a ceasefire, well, it remains out of the question. And according to the Secretary General, Naim Qassam, well, he said that they're in it.
Okay, so anyways, that was the report that he did the day before in which Israel tried to attack him. This is him today explaining what happened. And so this is Steve Swan. I'm going to make sure I follow him. He said, today Israel tried to kill me and a targeted airstrike. So it was today that airstrike happened. In southern Lebanon, as I was reporting on the targeting of bridges and the forced displacement of 1 million people in an ethnic cleansing operation on a larger scale than Nakba, I have absolutely no doubt this was deliberate, despite claims there were no warnings ahead of the strike and no notification sent to the Lebanese army who allowed us to film. As we have seen in Gaza, they want to silence journalists who document and report their war crimes. It is the Western powers who provide political and military support for Israel, arming it to the teeth to carry out genocide in Gaza and ethnic cleansing here in Lebanon. They are not simply complicit, but active participants and should be held accountable for their actions. But if Israel thinks today's strike will silence us and keep us out of the field, they are very mistaken. So here's him describing what happened.
I guess so. Yeah, well, you've probably all seen the footage of the airstrike that took place in Sur district as we were reporting on the destruction of a bridge. We've been treated in hospital for our injuries. I had a shrapnel wound in my arm, deeply embedded in the muscle here. That's been taken out, and here it is in this pot here. But what I do want to say is that this was a deliberate, targeted attack on journalists. There's no mistake about it. This was an Israeli precision strike from a fighter jet. What we were doing was we were reporting on the attacks on bridges, which is effectively severing South Lebanon from the rest of the country. 1 million people now internally displaced. This is the real story. It's not about us coming under attack as journalists. What we're seeing now and what we were reporting on is this plan for Israel to ethnically cleanse the south of Lebanon. This is without doubt an attack. This is on the scale or bigger than the scale of the Nakba. This is the forced displacement of 1 million people, which remains a war crime. And also we have to say that attacking is a war crime. Attacking civilian infrastructure is a war crime. But if they think that they're going...
So that's 3 war crimes Israel committed in one day.
To silence us, if they think that we're going to stay out of the field, they're very, very much mistaken.
So major respect and credit to Steve Sweeney for staying in Lebanon and reporting the news. And again, it just gets back to this larger Antichrist spirit, as we talked about with the closing of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, is they're cleansing 1 million people. 1 million people from southern Lebanon, majority of which are Christian. That's where the Christians reside in Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a Christian nation, people. It used to be majority Christian. Now, I saw one article saying that the Lebanese Christian population has declined by 80%. 80%. That is a historic Christian population. That is an ancient Christian population. Now down 80% from what it used to be. And you know things are bad when CNN is now shilling for Donald Trump. So Trump is now so far from his original platform in 2016 that CNN is actually shilling for him in 2026. And what do they mean by shilling? You've already seen all the outspoken resistance against Trump, right, in this war. It's incredibly unpopular. Everybody knows it. It's one of the most unpopular wars ever. There was a recent poll that said it was the most unpopular war in American history. And yet CNN keeps doing these interesting polls in which they claim Donald Trump has 100% approval. 100% approval. How could that be? Everyone I talk to is against this war. How is it that Donald Trump has 100% approval and support? Unless the media industrial complex is making everybody believe that there's really no resistance to this war. And if you hear someone resisting the war or blaming Israel for it, they must be a lunatic conspiracy fringe person. Listen to this.
And this is one of those, because just take a look here. MAGA GOP view.
So you saw they were just talking about Joe Kent, who just said all this explosive stuff about Israel recently. And now they moved to this.
Of Trump. Approve 100%. If you are a member of MAGA and the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove.
Where are they getting these numbers? Everyone I talk to is against this war. 100%. Even Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un just got reelected, right? You got to give it to him. He ran a wonderful campaign. He got elected by 99.3%. Incredible campaign by Kim Jong-un in North Korea. But yet somehow he doesn't have the demand that Donald Trump has. Donald Trump doesn't have 99.3. He has 100%. 100% approval. Kim Jong-un only got 99.3.
Disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%. He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Now, there are some Republicans who disapprove of Donald John Trump, but they are not members of the Make America Great Again movement.
So Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent or anybody who was supportive of Trump or voted for Trump, if you're critical, then you're not part of MAGA. Oh, okay. I see what they did there. You see, they reframed it that if you are critical, well, then you're not part of MAGA. So you can only be part of MAGA if you approve. That's why it's 100%. How stupid. How stupid. And how bad does that look for Trump? That doesn't make him look good. Anyone with a room level IQ would be like, 100%? 100% on a war? Never seen that before.
The bottom line is this. If you are a member of MAGA, you approve of Donald Trump.
It's interesting, though, because there have been a couple prominent people who have sort of come out online, and they're very mad about this war with Iran because he promised no new wars. Is there any sign that people might be leaving MAGA relative to 2024?
Yeah, okay. So, I've said it before, and, the theme of this segment is Tucker Carlson be darned. And when we look at the number...
Oh, okay. So it must be no one disapproves with Trump because Tucker Carlson, he said, Tucker Carlson be gone. Be gone from the MAGA movement? What is going on? How ridiculous. Thomas Miles says, this dude is gay as frick. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. No objection there. No objection at all. Sweden, in other based news, Sweden says Israel should be isolated and expelled from international institutions. The world would probably be a safer place. Let's just be honest. The world would probably be a safer place if that was the case. And then Marco Rubio. So all this is going on. This is yesterday. So the day that Joe Kent resigns, that's like taking over the whole news cycle. Everybody's talking about Joe Kent. Trump's taking questions about, did Israel get us involved? What was the role of Israel? What is our objectives of the United States? How do we get out of this war? And what does Marco Rubio post? He says, the United States congratulates Argentina as it begins its presidency of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. At a time of rising Holocaust distortion and denial, IHRA's leadership is vital. We commend President Milei's commitment to sharing truth and honoring survivors. Now, do you guys remember the big story that's going on regarding Israelis in Argentina right now? Let me remind you. There's a little place called the Patagonia. You may have a sweatshirt or some type of hiking equipment with Patagonia. Patagonia is an area of this, a part of it. It goes into Chile. It's in Argentina. It's a mountain range in South America. And the Patagonia had these incredible wildfires. Very strange because according to the locals who lived there, they said Israelis kept setting nature on fire. And then this really strange thing happened. Javier Milei, the Jewish new president of Argentina, it's really, really strange. He passed legislation that would allow international companies to purchase land in Argentina. It's, probably not related to anything, right? But then out of nowhere, Israeli companies and conglomerates began to purchase the land that was being burned by the wildfires in the Patagonia. Almost as if Milei knew that Israel wanted to basically create a new area for refugees, for people to flee. A bunch of them are going to Cyprus, but they're looking, where in the world can we go in case things really get bad in the homeland? And it sounds like they're going to set up shop in Patagonia because they have essentially the most Zionist person in the world, Javier Milei. I mean, he literally cries talking about the Zohar and Kabbalah. And I mean, he weeps like a child when he was at the wailing. He truly was wailing at the Wailing Wall. And so he basically sold out his country. Israel now controls the water supply in Argentina. That was a big deal, that he allowed an Israeli company to purchase the public water supply. He passed a law that allowed international operations to purchase land in Argentina. And then randomly, out of nowhere, all these Argentinians kept saying Israelis kept burning down the Patagonia, and now they're buying up the land. How weird. And so in light of all of that, in light of the fact that many Argentinians are not happy with Israel, are not happy with Israelis in their own country, we have Marco Rubio congratulating them on the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And we're not ruled by the Israelites. We're not ruled by the Jews. First comment says, haven't you kissed enough Jewish ass for a while? After all, you're bombing Iran for them. What's next? They're going to make you suck a baby boy's dick in religious which we've already covered. The 2-week-old baby that was in the hospital for severe herpes infection. Oh, man. Boy, oh boy. And then our last two tabs here. This is a view. The USS Ford is now leaving combat after a major fire broke out last week, injuring 200 sailors. It took 30 hours to fully control the blaze. That's a big fire that came from the laundry room. It took 30 hours to control a fire that came out of the laundry room, according to the U.S. military. Iran claimed they struck the aircraft carrier. The U.S. states damage is non-combat related. But they're leaving combat. Wow. And then our last one here is a little spilling of the beans. This is totally unrelated, but I thought it was pretty interesting.
Association with him. Just wanted to ask you about
it's U.S. Special Envoy Tom Barak runs away after realizing that he just exposed Epstein's links to Israel were known by everyone. And this is the quote that we're going to listen to. He says, "All of us dealt with Epstein. Most of us thought he built his wealth and prowess over his international relations with Israel." Check this out.
What I read in the Epstein files about your association with him, Why did you introduce him to Peter Thiel and Vitaly Churkin? What were your dealings with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I didn't introduce him to those people, but all of us dealt with Jeffrey Epstein in the 80s as a business person. He was bigger than life. It was a 30-year story of this that I think most of us actually thought that he had built his wealth and his prowess over his international relations with Israel. That's always what kind of the backdrop was. I didn't see the rest of it later in the 2015.
In the files I read, you're having dealings with him after he became a convicted sex offender. Why?
Dealings meaning he was emailing me, asking me for access to the president or a transaction. I was running a New York Stock Exchange company. He'd try and get a hold of me for relevant information. That was it.
But you met with him, and you met with Vitaly Churkin, you met with Peter Thiel and Epstein.
So interesting. According to the U.S. Special Envoy Tom Barak, he said everyone who dealt with Epstein in the 80s and 90s just assumed that he built his wealth and prowess from his international relations with Israel. Surprise, surprise. All right, let's check up with you guys and see what you guys sent in and have any questions or comments. Mr. Fist throws in 10, says, I just want to get through a single week without another chapter of Revelation coming true. Me too, bro. I do not enjoy all these eschatology stuff. I mean, I think it's important. I think I am more than happy to speak about them, but my God, I just want to make some money. I want to have some kids, want to have some land and a nice house, and just work on my business and just write books and do research and be left alone. But it doesn't seem like that's in our cards. You know, we were talking about this in our last men's meeting over at the Logos Academy. I'll share that link if you guys are interested. We did a meeting last week where we went over the latest in the war. We went over eschatology. We talked about all types of different stuff. And one of the big takeaways was that we all felt like we're living through a historic moment. And it's kind of surreal. Like, we don't know, you know, the rabbi Baruch, who's claiming that the Messiah is coming today, the Jewish Messiah, he's probably a loon. He's probably a freak. He's probably a weirdo. But it's just crazy how the war with Iran, you know, St. Paisios is talking about bombing the nuclear facilities, happened in June 2025. The capturing of the U.S. government by Israel, the revelation regarding Epstein, nobody's going to jail for the Epstein stuff. To see that Trump is trying to cover it up, to see how Kash Patel and Dan Bongino aren't just covering up Epstein, but according to Joe Kent, they're covering up who is behind the Butler assassination attempt. They're covering up who killed Charlie Kirk. It's just like, it feels like the whole thing's falling apart. You know, I've already said that this war is going to be incredibly detrimental to the United States, but even that is prophetic, right? Our church the saints and the church elders have spoke about how America is going to be in a really bad place after the Great World War. And that we're no longer going to be a hegemon, that the whole global power game is going to be reset. And I don't know if we're in the end times. I don't know anything about that, but there's so many signs every single day. It's insane. It's insane. Yes. Heidi B. Mary. Heidi, I got to say, thank you so much for your gift. I have the book. In case that you were in the stream today, Heidi was able to gift me a book of the Sagrada Familia, the very beautiful cathedral. I believe it's in Barcelona. It's in Spain. Heidi, thank you so much. You had a lovely, lovely note, and thank you for the support. Really appreciate it. Gina and I really, really appreciated it. So thank you very much. God bless you, Heidi. Really appreciate that support. 26 Ann throws in 5, says, God bless you all. Well, thank you very much, Ann, for that. Do appreciate it. The salty throws in two, says, we are saying Israel's consent publicly now. Yes, we are. That's where the American government is. We're talking about Israel's consent. Austin DeTulio says, for the griff, throws in two. Thank you so much, Austin. God bless you, bro. Orthonaut throws in two, says, just got in here. What Afroman do this time? Afroman won a lawsuit. So you may want to go. That was the first thing that we covered in today's Drama Alert was Afroman. And Jordan Johnson, I know him, member of the Logos Academy, throws in 5, says, this lady sounds like my aunt, and she's oneness and needs help. I don't know what oneness means. But thank you, Jordan. Do appreciate it. The salty said, so when we say blessed is the kingdom, we really mean this 100,000 donation was promised to me 3,000 years ago. Exactly. Trump is beholden to the lobby and his donors and probably his own sort of Zionist sentiments. And of course, his family's connections with the Israeli elite. Elite Beaver throws in 2, says, Paula White is Jan from The Office. Jordan Johnson throws in number 5. Thank you very much, Jordan. He says, it's a chronic case of DDS, dispensationalist derangement syndrome. This chronic disease is outnumbering those with TDS, tragic times. Yeah. No, Zionism is a scourge. Zionism is a plague to humanity. Zionism is literally Antichrist, as the church has already said. How many Orthodox saints and elders have I showed you that saying Zionism is Antichrist? It's unbelievable. Funky Monkey, shout out to you, man, throws in 5, says, it's sad that Russia, China, and Iran are better representatives of Christian virtues than America. Definitely Russia. Yeah, you could say China and Iran. No, fair enough. Our nation is degenerate, man. It's very difficult to be proud to be American. It's very difficult. Octavian throws in 2, says, hit the thumbs up, sub, and send super chats. Thank you so much, Octavian. Appreciate that. And 2 the Chickens throws in 2, says, my money's on crew mutiny like the toilet system. Fair enough. Thank you very much to the Chickens for your couple super chats today. Really appreciate that. And it's the Shanzi throws in 10, says, since the end of the age is well on the way, I guess you can take my money. Yeah, you won't. Exactly. Let me do my Paula White ministry real quick. Don't block your blessings, people. You're not going to need the money in the end times. Just send me your money. Offer an act of self-sacrifice right now. $100,000 and God's blessings will be bestowed upon you. If you don't have $100,000, you got to send in $1,000. Send in 100 different people sending $1,000 will reach the same goal. Just mark it out to Church of the Eternal Logos. Over on Dono Chat, nothing over there. And let me just check Streamlabs, make sure I don't miss anybody. Simon Magus versus Paula Maga. that is a demonic duel. I don't even know who wins that. Well, good point, Vagine. Vagine asked, Simon Magus versus Paula Maga. I don't know who wins that fight. That sounds like a brawl. That sounds like an ultimate brawl in hell. Anyways, guys, before we wrap up, just want to say if you would like to participate in our community and join us in some of our private meetings, we meet every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join the Logos Academy. We would love to have you there. And if you're interested in sponsoring a stream, you can sponsor a stream with this link right here. We got some great topics coming up. One on monasticism, another one on Kosovo, one on satanic ritual abuse. And of course, I'm putting together the one that you guys sponsored, which is on an Orthodox perspective of the Crusades. I'm going to do a general overview of all 4 crusades from the Orthodox perspective. I've already decided that'd be easier for one stream than doing deep dives into each one. We'll see what you guys want, but we'll do a general overview of all the crusades. Well, let me just say the main 4. There's technically like 8 crusades. So if you'd like to sponsor a stream, use that link right there. And if you'd like to get some author signed copies of my book, please do so with this link right here. Or if you'd like to just get a copy at a cheaper price, use Amazon. And if you do get the book from Amazon, please provide a 5-star review. I'd greatly appreciate that. Greatly appreciate that. Some people just send in some more super chats. The Salty throws in 5. Says, one last chat to say thanks for this stream. I finally got to catch one live. God bless, bro. Well, the Salty, thank you, brother, for the support. I really appreciate it. Bitter Klinger throws in 5. Says, do a real Paula White sermon. Humbla, blumbla, boombla, boo. He's mocking the fact she speaks in tongues. Bitter Klinger, you got me there. You got me there. And it's the Shanzi throws in 2 for the grift tax. I think that's our goal, isn't it? Oh, no, we got 2 more for the goal. We should have reached the goal. I don't know why it's not adding up. Did we run out of time? Anyways, guys, thank you all so much for the support. God bless you all. Blessed Lent. Have a wonderful weekend. I got some clips I'll be sharing over tomorrow and the weekend, but my next stream will probably be Sunday or Monday. We'll be diving into monasticism. And I got a handful of other topics I'd like to dive into. So God bless you all. God bless your families. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you in the next one. As always, until then, God bless.